Hello and welcome back to Blood and Ashes. This is episode 83. I'm your host Mo, and I'm joined once again by my heartbroken friends Jody.
May your blades chip and shatter.
And Billy.
And g'day.
It's good for now, but man, a couple of gut punches towards the end there, hey? Like one in particular is pretty heartbreaking.
So many.
Before you jump down my throat, let's not touch on any future chapters too early in the show because one might get reprimanded for...
Yes, please.
Well,
Let
I wasn't
me
going
not,
to be specific.
Just
talking
do reprimanding.
Yeah.
You did send us a message, Joe, saying like what you were reading your book on the beach or by the pool or something, and
Well, I was on holiday the last week. That's why we recorded slightly differently. I don't suppose the listeners noticed that. But yeah, we recorded a day earlier because I went on holiday and I was reading these upcoming chapters by the pool next to a water slide and just bawling my eyes out. Grown man surrounded by
sitting
strangers.
in a holiday location next to a water slide crying.
Right. It was so intense.
Yeah, it is. And you see what I meant about, like, you think the Seanchan battle is the big climax, and then a bunch of stuff just quickly happens toward the end here, which obviously we will dig into. So we'll do our normal spiel, obviously. We'll do our chapter recaps and our discussions of those chapters, and we pick our favorite moment, and then we'll have a couple minutes to just talk about the book as a whole, and then obviously pick our favorite moment from the book, the entire book, each one of us. I'm champing at the bit to go. So if you guys are ready, we can dive straight into callback so we can get into the meat here.
Yeah, for sure. Let's go.
All right, let me take a sip of my large glass of red wine that I've poured for this very momentous occasion, our Book 8 finale.
For the Australians, that's a schooner of red wine.
It is. I don't own a wine glass.
Hey, glass.
Bogan.
Okay, now all wind up, it is time for callbacks. How many Ashaman did Rand have in his forces? It's exactly 50, at least that he sent for. Gedwyn, Rochaid, 8 dedicated, so that's 10, and 40 soldiers. That's what he sent for, but he already had Dashiva, Narishma, Flynn, Hopple, Morr, and Adley with him after Duma as well. So he had a little cadre with him.
The dark friends don't count.
That's strange, coming from a dark friend.
Yes.
Like reverse psychology on us or something. I don't know. Tricksy.
But to put that in context, can you remember how many Ashaman were at Duma's Wells?
Fewer.
69.
200.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, but there, remember, Duma's Wells was a full-blown assault, where here it's like teleporting around in the forest, in the mountains, right? So it's like uncertain terrain, it's rocky and everything. So it was like full-on guerrilla tactics, where Duma's Wells was just like hammer and anvil.
When you use guerrilla tactics, you make yourself a nimble force, light movers.
6,000.
I don't understand quite why Wyramon is there, because he's not nimble nor effective.
No.
But anyway.
What a douche.
Sometimes you just take people with to keep an eye on them.
Well, that's exactly what Rand says to everyone else. Like he says to Bashir, he'll keep these other nobles with him because he doesn't trust them. And Wyramon he had to take with him because he thinks he's an idiot and he might fuck things up if he doesn't keep an eye on him. So it's exactly that, Phil.
Yeah.
Then we asked, how come the Seanchan are taking Damane if they can't be used as weapons, if they can't use the one power as a weapon? And can they even? And from RJ himself, which Ian Yellen writes in about later as well, no, they can't be used as weapons. So Aes Sedai Damane can't attack other people. They can attack Dark Friends, they can attack Shadowspawn, and then they can obviously do the other things like logistics, find metals. Remember, like they had Egwene sort of testing for finding metals and stuff. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that they use Damane for that is not just war. But yeah, can't use them as weapons against non-shadow.
Open gateways.
Well, they don't know gateways yet, but eventually.
But when they do, I mean, because in the future, I imagine that gateway knowledge is available to everyone after the treaty.
It would come out. I mean, the final battle itself is
Yeah.
just rife with gateways, right? Like they're going all over the place. They fight
Yeah.
the battle across the whole continent. Then, Jody, you were correct. Okay, I went back and I read the section as well. I mean, even though you had me thoroughly convinced, but Liandrin is in fact not collared. She's just Dako Vol carrying Suroth's writing desk. She was taken in Amador when the Seanchan arrived there. She escaped the collar because of the inverted shield on her. So not only was she shielded, but the shield was inverted. So no one knew that she could channel. Suroth did and kept it from everyone. And then later in the story, when it starts becoming known that, like, hang on, this Dukoval looks like they might be able to channel, rumors of a Marath Daman walking around in Suroth's household get out. And Suroth thinks to herself, okay, it's time to collar Liandrin. But that doesn't eventuate, and you don't actually know what happens to Liandrin in the end. It's not chronicled.
We can hope her life just goes down the
We
shit
can
a
write a
little
short story about that.
I imagine if Jody and Villy had to write a short story about Leandrin's end, they would be very different.
Challenge
I don't
accepted.
really like her.
You don't like her? Oh, because she's a rival in your power structure. A competitor for Nablus.
You know, she got found out and caught. So
Ja,
suck it.
Sy dom is met jy kak. Then, Vil, you were sort of stumbling around the word Catholicism last time, and I think it was when Elayne was sort
Yes,
of
that word.
It was a catechism, and I was like, that's the word Villy meant. And when I went back and I read the section, it actually says catechism in there as well. So, I mean, that is how you and I, Villy, learned the word catechism, katkasasi, from the Dutch Reformed Church when we were taught our churchy things, and that's why you went with
Catechesis.
Catholicism.
Yeah,
Jody didn't go to church.
Is
He's
it?
a heathen.
Okay, Jody went to the Methodist Church. I know him from his church
I
days.
never went.
Didn't you?
Went to the Methodist church. I may have gone once or twice. I remember I was there for weddings. And
He
stuff.
got married in a Methodist
Yeah.
church, and that was about it.
No. We're the Nuwe Apostolische Kerk. My
Oh, that's
parents.
right.
It was something like that.
Yeah, the
Yes.
new apostolics.
Yeah, look at our religious backgrounds, hey?
Hey man, South Africa.
True.
After Brazil, the second most religious country in the world.
Really?
I
Wow,
read it
really?
the other day about a list
know
of
that.
most religious countries. The Brazilians with their Catholicism.
Not even the Italians
No.
with their, Pope.
Italians. Technically, it's
Now, the
Vatican.
Italians' religion is Ferrari.
Yeah. And gelato. Oh, and football.
Gelato and Ferrari.
I think they put football above the Pope. So not so religious. But yeah, I was surprised as well. But if you think about it, everyone you know in South Africa is religious.
That's true.
Maybe not the younger people, but like your mom and your teachers and
Oh, yeah.
people you grew up with, everyone. So yeah, there we go.
Then we were wondering, how long were Rand's forces fighting in the mountains for? Because we thought there was 5 days and then another 5 days after they decided to go on to Ibudar.
Yeah.
I tried to go figure it out, and I looked at that timeline website that I use from time to time as well, and it looks like it was only 6 days in total. So maybe they had been fighting for 5 days, Joe, and then when they arrived at Ibudar, it was just a day of frenetic battle.
The next day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it was around 6 days. But if our listeners know of any detail that could attest to something else, then let us know. When Masana appears to address Alviaran, we don't see where they are, but it's certainly not out in the hallway. Masana is using an elaborate disguise, and Alviaran is on her belly on the floor. So it's not in the corridors of the tower, because that would be pretty conspicuous. And then speaking of Alviaran, I can't find any reference anywhere as to where Alviaran could have been for 2 weeks. Remember when she comes back to Elayne's study, she'd been missing, and Elayne sort of felt a bit freer again, or sort of she had found the seal of the Amelin and could actually sign documents again. And then Alviaran puts her in her place when she comes back. But what does happen later is Alviaran is stripped of the title of keeper due to being absent again when the rebels show up. But she isn't found out as Black Archer. She's just not the keeper anymore. And then later she's revealed as Black Archer when Varen spills the beans. Only then is the jig up.
Oh.
So she was probably just off doing Dark Friend business, like Alviaran comes and goes. She knows traveling, as you mentioned, Joe.
Slitting throats. Well, she's probably used the one power. But Philly, don't you know anything from your dark thread contacts? What was she up to those 2
I heard
weeks?
a few whispers that knives got bloodied and people got dead. And that's all I'm going to say.
We kind of breezed past a point that I wanted to make in the last episode, and that is when the Black Archer hunters are down in that room in the basement, and then the other sisters arrive, the 4 other sisters arrive, and they bust them, interrogating Zero. And, so it's Elayne and Pavara are the 2 Black Archer hunters at this point. They've got Zero down there, like talking to her about, like, and then they figure out that she's a ferret, and then Seren and... who's it? Dosine and Taline and Yukiri. They all walk in. Seren is an older woman. She's the oldest sitter, I think. She's been a sitter for 40 years or something like that. And when they come in and they sort of like, they're tiptoeing around, they're like, what are you doing down here? Swearing in new sisters and everything. And Elayne, at that point, has got the oath rod hidden on her lap. And Seren spots it. And with her, like, even though she's much older than anyone there, she quickly like reaches out, grabs it and snatches it and she holds it. And she's like, okay, so, speculation abounds. They're all sort of like, and while Elayne and Pavara are acting all coy. And then suddenly Seren just goes, I think I've got it. And she just swears an oath on the oath rod that she won't tell a lie, and then immediately says, I'm not a dark friend, which she hasn't asked anyone if that's what they're doing. No. She just does that thing, which is badass. I love that.
Yeah. She's Batman.
Yeah, which is really, I like her style. Like, she's the one that's also like clutching her knife, so that when the other one, what's her name?
White knuckled.
Yes, exactly. Taline, when she doesn't, when Taline doesn't want to like swear the oath and stuff again, she's not just holding it; she's white knuckle gripping the dagger. Like this old, experienced sitter is ready to stab a bitch.
Yeah, man, she's rearing to go. Finally, some action.
I mean, the names at this point. I feel like in this book, and we'll get to this later, but in this book, we're thrown more names to sort of keep track of again, right? Like they've been slowly peppered in throughout the series, and like in this one, there's a lot. And I'm trying to keep the Aes Sedai at least somewhat distinct. And Seren to me is one that is now I'm going to remember. She's the older sitter that has the knife and is actually a bit of a badass.
Because in that room, there's her, Seren, and another one with an S.
Elayne.
I still can't get those two separated.
Yes.
Like those.
So I'm going to say them over and over and over and over again. When we read their names, I'm going to go, remember, it's this person. It's like just so we can see if we can sort of form a less blurry, homogenized image of like every single Aes Sedai in the tower. Because man, it's hard. Then we asked, speaking of those, how long have Elayne and Pavara been seeking the Black Archer? It's been 28 days between Elaida tasking Seren, I just made the same mistake, Elayne with finding them. It's in my notes. I typed it wrong. 28 days since Elaida asked Elayne to find traitors, but like effectively asking her to, the way Elayne interpreted it, finding the Black Archer, and when Zero is caught. So this scene that plays out in the basement is 28 days after. And so far,
days later.
Yeah, so far all I can tell is that Elayne has only told Pavara, and they haven't found any. I think Zero is the first sort of sister that they've made swear anything to obey them, because there's that extra oath they make her do. So they haven't really made much headway, and Elayne even thinks to herself, it was really tricky to get the furniture down into the basement, find a place to operate out of, find a plan of attack.
I think they made a lot of headway. They've made the most headway the tower has made against Black Archer, other than Varen Mathwin, that became Black Archer herself to try and root this out.
No, that's true. They have.
So for me, that is 28 days, considering that their forensics is, medieval at most, and going off seeds attached to horse saddles.
I mean, that's a pretty good deduction as well, though. Speaking of that, Phil, I've got a callback for that. The river that Tarvalon is on, that Zero was traveling down, is the river Erenin. We couldn't think of the name.
Yeah, what did I say? Nile. Or was I in the Nile?
The Limpopo. No, the Mississippi. The Aiel game, Jody, the rock, paper, scissors is knife, paper, stone.
Yeah, man.
Knife, paper, stone.
Okay.
I made a comment that I think one of Cadsuane's hair ornaments acts like Matt's medallion, but she has a hair ornament that disrupts weaves somewhat. It's unclear exactly how it works, but it's not quite as... So it's like, I think later in the story, it interferes with Semirog's Mask of Mirrors, and that's how she's unmasked. But it's not that you just straight up can't, focus a weave on her. Like,
all right.
The science behind
like
it, quote unquote. Yeah,
passive ability.
It's a disruptive field of some kind, and maybe works on Saidar. Who knows? Certainly Saidar. So not quite the full Foxhead Medallion ability. And then my last one for callbacks is, where is Suroth getting her military intel from? Remember she walks into the Offspinner's tent and tells him, like, it's not 100,000, 90,000 men, it's 6,000, and they'll be here in minutes, not 10 days like you think, because they can travel. So she must be getting info from a Forsaken?
Possibly.
Yes. And they're getting the info from the
she's under Moradin, right?
That is all. Yeah,
she was under Ishamael, so you would only assume that Moradin would follow up and keep control of her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Moradin's doing a lot of consolidation, as we'll see in these chapters.
Yes. Then on to listener contributions. Mr. Dependable, Ian Yellen, sent in a couple of clarifications. So again, apparently the shield placed on Leandrin made it so the Sean Chan couldn't sense her ability to channel. Not only is Sylviana not Black Arger, she becomes Egwene's keeper under the United Tower. So remember we were talking about Sylviana coming into the study and giving... Sylviana's the current mistress of novices in the tower. Yes. She gives Elyna penance. We were wondering like what her affiliation is, but she is retained as keeper under Egwene. We were also talking about Elayne Ryoton, who is one of the two noblewomen with Rand that was pulling a dagger. We said the one was a dark friend, but Elayne Ryoton is not a dark friend and becomes one of the supporters for Elayne. We said that much. Her biggest problem is that her brother is Torum, who she doesn't like, and her cousin was Goldrian. Oh. So like she's got like the family working against her, as does Bertome.
Short straw.
Yes, Bertome also has his family working against him because his cousin is Colivia, but he is not a person of... We said in the end he's around and stuff. He's of no import to the story whatsoever. He just happens to have this infamous cousin that makes other people like Rand distrustful
suspicious of him.
Yeah.
He's just there to be suspicious. That's
yes. To give us another noble name to remember and keep track of.
Yeah.
The additional traps on Kalandor, the prevalent theory is that Lanfear placed them, not Rand. So Rand did tell Narishma about everything that he did, but we also speculated that another Forsaken might have done something. Now, I feel like Narishma would have said something if the other traps were Saidar and not Saidin. So I also like the idea of another Forsaken placing them there, but I would think it was a male Forsaken purely because Narishma didn't say anything about, you should know, a woman placed some traps on that. You know, like he could not have been mad at Rand for not telling him about something if Rand was incapable of putting them there in the first place, right? So I think it was a male Forsaken. I think we might have mentioned one of the theories I read where Moradin has to go to the Finns to free Lanfear, or to kill Lanfear so that she could be reincarnated as Sindane, and he may have used the doorway in the Stone of Tyr, and on his way past could have stopped by, laid a couple extra traps, like chuckled to himself and then gone on again. Yeah, he certainly has access.
He's been able to see Rand's traps.
Moradin? He wouldn't need to, not if he's laying more traps on top of them.
Just thought that like, oh cool, there's maybe this thing here. He probably put a little bit of a tracker on it, so let's just zap a few little things on it too.
A little practical joke. Then we asked... Ian says, the question was asked about the three oaths in Damane, and here is Robert Jordan's answer. The Aes Sedai captured by the Seanchan are indeed useless as weapons, except against Shadowspawn or Dark Friends, because they are bound by the three oaths, and that limits their value considerably, since being weapons is a major use for Damane. So... probably just the insatiable appetite for Seanchan to collar and enslave Marath Damane, more so than trying to use them as weapons. Then, good friend Kerry Katz sent me another voice note with a pretty cool observation, something I'd not considered before. Alviarin needs to be careful sending Silviana into Elida's study. Because when Silviana arrives, she says, the keeper said you wanted to speak with me about a private penance. Now, Elida does not want to do that. That is not true. She does not want to speak to Silviana about a private penance. And I went back and I read the whole interaction with Alviarin, between Elida and Alviarin. And at no point does Alviarin say, I'm going to send Silviana here for a penance for you. So Elida should be able to infer from that statement
reason I was confused there.
That Alviarin is lying. If Alviarin told Silviana that Elida wants to see her for a private penance, that's a lie. And Elida should know that.
No, I think she just told her outside of Elida's view. When they passed each other in the hallway, I mean, Elida just assumed that she told her outside.
Yeah, but what Alviarin told Silviana is that Elida wants to see Silviana, which Elida does not want to do.
Okay. Oh, right. No, I see your point now.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's implied that something like that might happen. So, like I said, I read the whole interaction between Elida and Alviarin again. Yeah. And Alviarin, the closer she comes, is like, I should know better than to leave you with the seals, and you've been, repeat your catechism to me and blah, blah, blah. But she doesn't say anything about sending Silviana for a private penance. And then Silviana walks in and says, Alviarin told me that you wanted to see me about a private penance, which is not true. So Silviana would be telling the truth. So Alviarin would have had to have been lying. So, yeah, just she needs to be careful. And we made this comment last time that Alviarin needs to pull her neck in a bit because she's walking into the room, dominating the conversation, pushing other sitters out of the way. She's not exactly being as careful as she could be.
She's high on power, man. High on power.
She sure is.
All these Forsaken and Black Aja, like hubris and arrogance are their downfall. Like,
yes. At least you can count on that.
Yeah, they're predictable.
Yeah. Then Scott Wilson sent in some YouTube comments and a voice note. At least I'm assuming it's the same Scott Wilson that sent in a voice note and YouTube comments. The first one of which is a funny moment when Rand is talking to the two noble women in chapter 21. He wonders how people know that he has a soft spot for women. And then in the next chapter, he saves all the Seanchan women. Like he makes a big deal about saving them. Yes, Rand, everybody knows. And your enemies, and they are going to use it against you. So stop being surprised. And then when we spoke about Balefire and it being able to sort of impair the Dark One's ability to resurrect someone because of the use of Balefire, Scott saying that when Demandred goes to the Pit of Doom and they talk of Ravin, the Dark One says, even I cannot save someone from Balefire. Which is a pretty ambiguous line. He doesn't explain, like, because the Balefire moves them too far back in time, the point of death is outside of my zone of control or anything. It's just that statement.
He doesn't report to them. He doesn't have to give explanations.
But it is like that sort of sentence, like that's probably stuck in my subconscious, right? The Dark One said, I cannot save someone from Balefire. And that has likely colored my my interpretation. Thanks to Joe and Robert Jordan, I have been educated.
Walk in the light.
And then Scott sent in the voicemail that goes a little something like this.
Hi guys, Scott Wilson here. The extra little bit there with Logain was her kissing him back in the scene there. So I think that was what Logain was referring to. Love what you guys do. Bye.
So the fandom wiki says that the Ashaman used the wife bond plus some compulsion. So like you said, Jody, the extra bit was the compulsion added to it. But the fact that Logain is saying it and saying, I could have done without the extra bit, means that it would have been Tovine that did something. And the only thing she could have done in that moment in the throes of her mood is probably kissing him back. So Scott, that is probably what Logain is talking about. Yeah. Someone actually asked Robert Jordan this question. What was the extra bit in the Path of Daggers? Was it the kiss or the bonding? Please help settle this long-standing dispute. And then Robert Jordan says, the kiss is necessary because that's how they learned to do it, because that's how the fellow that developed it did it. The extra bit is something in the bonding, and you'll find out what in Winter's Heart. You should have gotten a clue, I think, in the scene where the bonding took place. So the extra bit of the weave is that mild compulsion, or I don't even know how mild it is from you've read the prologue to Winter's Heart, Joe. It's quite a bit from Tovine's point of view there, and it seems like more than just a bit of compulsion.
Actually, because it's all like points of view, and she's the third one, and I haven't got there yet. Okay, I'm on there right now. No spoilers, never mind.
Yeah. But again, to Scott's point, the fact that Logain said it meant that the part that we were sort of confused about is the part from Tovine, and it's probably like just returning the kiss.
She slipped in the tongue, I'm telling you.
But what's cool is that chapter name also is the name of the chapter in which they make Zera swear to obey Cairhien and Pavara. So there's an extra bit in the 3 oaths as well. So another one of the multiple meaning chapter titles. Okay, that's it for listener contributions. Let me take another big gulp of wine before we get to previously on Blood and Ashes. Here we go.
Gulps of wine.
Gulps of wine all round. Okay. Rand makes his final push against the Seanchan in a series of battles around Ibudar. He ignores the Ashaman's concerns over the weirdness in the One Power and pushes them hard to the extent that Adley causes some collateral damage when he loses control of some of his weaves. Oh, the tannins are getting me in the back of the throat. But Rand persists and his forces engage the Seanchan in a number of skirmishes. Meanwhile, Suroth has educated the commander of the Seanchan forces on the number of soldiers in Rand's forces, as well as when to expect them. As a delicious side note, she has Leandrin with her uncollared but still shielded and treats her like a pet, going as far as to stroke her head. Delicious. Eventually, Bashir advises Rand to pull back, that the Seanchan commander knows what he's about and is luring them into a killing field, but Rand has one more ace up his sleeve. He wields Kalandor and rains down an insane lightning storm that causes massive casualties on both sides. Eventually, Bashir tackles Rand off his horse, and he lets go of the weave and realizes what has happened and agrees to pull back. The Seanchan also retreat, licking their wounds and wondering who's going to explain this terrible loss to the Empress. We then join Elayne, who has enjoyed a couple of weeks with no Alviarin and is just starting to feel herself again when Alviarin walks into a meeting she's having with some other Aes Sedai. Alviarin basically takes over, sends the other Aes Sedai away, and in private reprimands Elayne for acting without her consent and then slaps her. Elayne is powerless to do anything about it and is forced to repeat Alviarin's catechism to her, stating her absolute obedience. When Alviarin leaves, she sends Sylviana to give Elayne a private penance, which leaves the puppet Amyrlin blubbering into her pillow and wishing for Alviarin's demise. Meanwhile, Masana appears to Alviarin and cautions her about overstepping her mark. In the exchange, Alviarin spots the hem of Masana's dress through her illusion disguise and figures out Masana is posing as an Aes Sedai in the tower, since she seems very well informed about the undercurrents. Elsewhere in the tower, Cairhien, who has been tasked by Elayne to find the traitors, is actually hunting the Black Arja. She collects Zera Sedai and leads her down to the basement where Pavara is waiting with the Oath Rod. The two senior sisters make Zera re-swear the 3 oaths plus an oath to obey them. They make her state outright that she's not a dark friend, which she does, but after some more prodding, get her to admit that she is a plant from the rebels sent to spread the story about the Red Arja propping up false dragons, including Logain. Pavara, a red sitter, is aghast at the accusation, and when she orders Zera to name the lie, they discover the 2 conflicting oaths result in the swearer not being able to breathe. After they allow Zera to breathe again, they are interrupted by 4 more sitters who have followed them down to the basement. Seren, Talene, Yukiri, and Dosin enter the room, making a group of 6 sitters, 1 from each Arja except the blue, plus Zera. The newcomers start guessing at what they could be doing down here when Seren discovers the oath rod on Cairhien's lap. She immediately figures out what they're doing, grabs the rod, makes the oath to never lie, and states that she's not a dark friend. Yukiri and Dosin follow her, but Talene is weirdly reluctant. They have found their first Black Arja sister. We then switch to Tovine Ghazal, a red sister exiled after the atrocities of the Vileness, but who has been reinstated by Elayne and tasked with taking 50 sisters and 200 soldiers to destroy the Black Tower, gentling and hanging all the men they can channel against Tower law. But they are ambushed by the Ashaman, who they have clearly underestimated, and in the process the men bond the Aes Sedai with the form of the wife bond the Ashaman use with their partners, plus some compulsion. Logain himself bonds Tovine. Back in Cairhien, Rand returns to Min, who is mad at him for leaving her there and sending the most perfunctory of letters, but is conflicted because all she wants to do is drag him off to bed. Dobrain also arrives and gives his reports. Marana comes and gives Rand a summary of the bargain they made with the Sea Folk. When Rand is ungrateful, she unleashes on him, blaming him for how badly it went, and he concedes that she is correct. Rand asks Min to have the maidens summon Cadswain, and Min realizes they're behaving strangely. When she returns and is alone with Rand getting undressed, 3 maidens, including Nandera, come in and beat the shit out of Rand for leaving them behind and dishonoring them, but they take great care not to beat him in his old wounds. It's Min's turn to be aghast, but Rand calms her down and admits he deserved that. When Cadsuane doesn't answer Rand's summons, he decides to go to her and have it out. In Cadsuane's rooms, Rand tries to flex with Saidin, but it does not scare or impress Cadsuane. She eventually agrees to his offer to act as his advisor, but she refuses to take orders. She does, however, promise to act only in Rand's best interests, not hers or the Tower's. As a show of good faith, before Rand leaves, Cadsuane tells Rand about the flaw in Kalandor, that it does not have a block to prevent the channeler from drawing too much of the One Power. Rand wonders if this could be the reason for the weirdness at Ibudar, but no. Either way, he can't use it for something he's been planning, and there's only one other option. And that brings us to today's first chapter, chapter 28, called Crimson Thorn. What does Crimson Thorn do, Jody?
It's a light laxative. Yes, Crimson Thorn. Yes, like Nynaeve expecting a coming storm, Elayne is expecting a coming explosion amongst humans. She has experience with those. You remember, she's always around explosions nowadays. All these powerful women cooped up together over weeks and weeks with all these clashing personalities and clashing hierarchies and clashing cultures. It's bound to boil over, and she's expecting it. Ah, my dear girl, if only you knew. So, for once it's not snowing. The sky is clear, so Elayne sees Adelaus from a mile away dragging one of the kin through the snow. And she's like, oh shit, here we go. Here comes this explosion. Turns out this kin member is Garenia. Turns out she's a runaway novice. Adelaus, or someone else, I can't remember if that's true now, finally recognized her as Zarya. Someone who ran away around 70 years ago. It's like, holy crap, man. I think you has to be a statute of limitations. You didn't catch her within 50 years. But, you know, if you think that's, let her be. She's earned her freedom. But if you think that's long ago, there's suddenly another kin member, when they all gather around, falls to her knees, Christian, her name is, and starts begging for mercy and admits that she too is a runaway from the tower. And she ran away over 300 years ago. And she's telling them, I know you would have found me eventually. And Adelaide is like, yeah, of course we would. You've been missing
They've forgotten she'd left. No one is around.
She's admitting to being a runaway from before Adelaide was born. Yes. So, wow, she really would have gotten away with it. But she is overwhelmed with guilt and falls down to her knees begging for mercy. So, I mean, Aes Sedai and the kin have all gathered around to see what's going on now. There's a whole thing going on. One of the problems that Elayne sees, one of the other problems, is that, these women have been alive longer than any Aes Sedai in the camp, and they've been living their lives free for too long to be easily reintegrated into novice white. That's going to be difficult for everyone. And another issue is that this woman that just fell down to her knees, the 300-year runaway, Christian, is also very strong in the power, almost as strong as Nynaeve, apparently. So, once they find her, they're not going to let her go now. Doesn't matter how long ago away she ran, she is coming back. Not everyone is happy with the situation. There's been, as you know, this kin Aes Sedai dynamic has been evolving, where the kin start realizing these Aes Sedai aren't all that. So there's a lot of dissent there, but the law for the Aes Sedai and the kin go along with it. It's if a runaway novice is caught, they are taken back to the tower. The kin will let the Aes Sedai do it. So the law is pretty clear on both sides, but there's some of the kin members that think these laws should be changed. So they're starting to question this, and they're like, hey, we are many, and the Aes Sedai are few. And I'm thinking, hey, easy now. So a lot of dissent. People are talking loudly, and they're like, why should they give up one of their own? They shouldn't have to give her back to the Aes Sedai. It gets so tense that Elayne and Avienda actually embrace the source, and through that, Brigitte feels it, and she also gets ready for action. They think really is this the explosion that Elayne is expecting? Here it comes, actual conflict, between the Aes Sedai and the kin. But cooler heads prevail. They should. Elise steps in. As always, it's Elise. She takes charge, calling out the dissenters amongst the kin. She recognized someone's voice, who shouted out, yes, we'll get him. And she's like, I know it's you. You will report to me later, and you'll bring a switch for some traditional Robert Jordan spanking. Later on, once this all dissipates and everybody breaks up. Later on, they meet up with Nynaeve. She's rejoined them. after her little sexy times with Lan, and she's all mad about all the excitement that she missed. They actually see the kin dissenters heading off to Elise with switches in their hands, and they see Christian and Zarya, these kin runaways, in white dresses as well. So it's all happening. 9 days later, because I had to double check this many times to find the timelines, but it's 9 days later now. So Elayne is like ruefully hoping that she can, make it to Caemlyn without a murder, because this descent between the kin and the Aes Sedai has not stopped. There's constant chirping over 9 days. So she thinks it's really going to boil over. And this is when Christian, in her novice white, arrives with a message from Lan for them to come quickly and quietly. Like, don't tell anybody where you're going. She leads them back to the shed where Adelaus and Van Dien have Ispan holed up for questioning. And Lan is guarding the door, and he stops Christian from entering. And Elayne understands why when she goes in. And there we find Adelaus on the floor, her throat slit, lying in a pool of her own congealed blood, and Ispan on the bed with on her face up with her eyes open and a stake driven into her heart. Holy shit, man. Both of them with eyes wide open, with fear on their faces. And Nynaeve sees a spilled teapot, she goes into full detective mode, bends down, puts her finger in it, it's
forensics,
spilled tea on the floor, forensic, tasting it, spitting it out. She's like full CSI. She spits it out quickly, and she's like, Crimson Thorn. Van Dien appears at the door at that moment. She's like seeing what goes on. She's seen them skulking around. She saw them heading over. She's come to see what's happening, but Lan tries to bar her way, but she just stops him with a gesture, and he's like, well, she's not to be ignored. And she just observes the room and her sister with a calm dignity, and she sees Nynaeve, and then she's like, Nynaeve, what have you found? So Crimson Thorn, not a mild laxative, is used for managing pain in small amounts, but this was not a small amount. A huge amount was used. Adelaus and Ispan were probably paralyzed, but aware this entire time, and for a while, for hours, while Ispan was tortured. The way that she has been killed speaks of something personal towards her. So they figure from the evidence provided that whoever did this wanted Ispan to know who was doing it to her. So wanted her to be aware during it. And so that obviously, and the fact that Adelaus drank the tea also proves that it's someone that they know, because Adelaus would not have accepted something to drink from someone she didn't know while questioning a Black Aja member. So it's someone in their group, someone they trust, and they were primarily after Ispan. So Van Dien's like, all right, can everybody just give me a minute to be alone with her sister? And they leave her cradling her sister's body on the ground. When they shut the door behind them, they hear this screech, this of her finally breaking down and crying out along with me next to the pool on holiday. And Nynaeve instinctively wants to go in and comfort her, but Van Dien's warder Jaime just steps in front of her with eyes like ice, they say, bars her way. Gives her one of those warder looks no. So they leave Van Dien to mourn her sister and Jaime to guard her in it while they comfort each other outside. They're all hugging outside, Nynaeve's hugging them, and everyone's just taking a moment. A couple of later on, I suppose, after burying Adelaus, they take another 2 miserable days to reach Caemlyn. And I've written here, take a break, because this is emotional. Everybody take a break. Is there anything you want to say at the moment? Anybody have some last words? This hit me hard, eh?
Oh, yeah.
Harder than I thought.
Lots of emotion.
Yeah.
Crikey Moses. So she's out of the picture. Like Van Dien saying, I thought we knew we didn't have a lot of time left, but I thought we would have more than this, So, and then breaks down that scream.
Did you go look up who did it?
No, I didn't. I couldn't handle that shit then, but you can tell me now.
It's Cairhien Francie. An Aes Sedai traveling with them. The Black Aja sister.
Have we met her yet? I don't suppose it's been... Oh. All right. Yeah. But she kind of played a big role, because I don't remember that name at all. Well, that doesn't really prove anything, I suppose.
No.
All right.
We've established that. Do you know the hallmarks of this murder/assassination has just reminded me of Paid and Fane when I read it. Like I'm like, oh, wow, this is so Fane. Like the idea that they would be aware and that also stake. We know he's loved that method before, driving stakes through people. But then again, I knew it wasn't him. And again,
I don't know. Maybe
it was like classic misdeception. Like, oh no, Paid and Fane's back.
Cairhien was part of the Saladar embassy sent to...
I don't recall now.
Look it up.
But Saladarian, you say. Yep, these dark friends are everywhere.
She was part of the Saladar Aes Sedai and went to Ibudar as part of their embassy. She acted as the seat of pardon when Merlil decided to put Elayne on trial for her discovery of the kin. So she's been around.
I remember her now. Crikey. All right. You never know. Could be anyone. Watch your backs. All right. So, break over. Intermission is over. The whole group enters Caemlyn. We've now arrived back in Caemlyn. There's no fanfare. Elayne noticing the Aiel in the streets and the dragon banners flying alongside the red lion of Andor and the banner of the light, which I suppose is the old Aes Sedai symbol. So she's noticing all these things like, what have you been doing in my city? She's not pleased. They arrive at the royal palace. She dismounts there, leaving everybody outside. Of course, tradition dictates that she must enter alone, so not even Aviendo or Brigitte can come with her. She announces to the guards there who she is and that she has come to claim the Lion Throne, almost at the Iron Throne. The gates open for her, and she walks in past a very surprised Rianne Harfor. Hey, she's happy to see she's still there. Of course, that place would fall apart without her. She hurries to the Grand Hall to find it empty, with like the Royal Hall or the Grand Hall, I can't remember what it's called, where the throne room, I suppose it is. Passing by all the stained glass windows, depicting the history of Andor and the queens that came before her, looking down at her, judging her. She sees that the dragon throne has been removed. Like she saw it in Tel Anriod and was like really pissed off about that, taken it back. And then of course the Lion Throne is back in its place on the dais, like everything's prepared for her. So she's like finally home, The memory of her mother's death is coming back, so she has to like steel herself to remain calm. She's like, can't be crying now, no breaking down. Softly and to herself, she vows to honor her mother's memory and to bring honor to House Trakand. And then a voice from behind her makes her turn slowly to find old Dylan there.
Yay.
Dylan. She's back. She'd kept the room empty, suspecting that Elayne might want a few moments alone. And then I wondered, was it not Dylan who removed the dragon throne and put everything in place? Because she knew 2 days ago that she heard that she was alive and that she was on her way. So she knew she was coming.
Maybe.
And I'm just thinking, like, as I thought originally, Rand took it down for her. But I don't think he would have. Like, he has got other things to worry about. I think
he's also just not
Dylan prepped the room.
Yeah, he's not as tuned into like that need. He thought he was putting it up on a pedestal and put the temporary chair there. Like he thought that was a good thing. When everyone else looked at it and like, oh God, okay, no, this is a terrible idea. I don't think
so.
he's...
My first thing was thinking that he did it, but no. Now second reading, I think it's Dylan.
Dylan certainly seems to be the one that's sort of like preparing for Elayne's taking of the throne, right? Like she supports Elayne.
Yeah, she says, like, I suspected that you might want some time alone, so I cleared everybody out and everything out. So she did some prep before she came, and I'm thinking if it just might have extended to putting the throne back in its place, chucking away that ghastly dragon throne.
Dylan is constantly proclaiming her loyalty to Elayne, and Elayne just mistrusts her the whole time.
So do I. Like, it seems too obvious. It must be a trick.
Yeah.
So, like she says, she's heard she's coming, and she's done some prepping. And she asks her, like, have you come to accept the throne from the dragon reborn? I'm like, oh, no. She's come to claim it by her own right. She don't need no man giving her a throne. Dylan is like, yep, that is the correct answer. That's what I wanted to hear. So Elaine's like, asks her how it stands. Like, let's get down to business, right? Are you with me? Like, who's with me? Who's against me? And are you with me? And because she gave the right answer to Dylan is like, all right, I'm with you. If you're here to claim it in the ways of tradition, then I'm on your side. So let's get down to business. All right, so how's it standing with everyone else? Yeah, Dylan has locked up Elayne and Elayne on a charge of treason, so don't worry about them. Amarilla has announced a claim. How cute. She has no chance. The real concerns are Caemlyn, Arethel, and Pelivar. We remember them. Luan and Elayne are with House Trakand, but they could switch sides at any moment. So Elaine's like, well, if those last 5 did unite, that's Caemlyn, Arethel, Pelivar, Luan, and Elayne, who would they unite behind? Like you're kind of, insinuating that they would join up behind someone. And Dylan with a smile is like, well, me, of course. They seem to think I should go for the dragon throne or dragon throne, lion throne.
Yes.
All right.
Chance.
See, it gets in your head. So she's like still testing Elayne, testing the waters. She wants to know what she intends to do with the dragon reborn. And Elaine's like, well, I intend to bond him as my warder and marry him as my husband. But that's got nothing to do with the claim. The claim, let's start. She starts telling Dylan of her plan, of what's her plan to take power, to claim the throne. Which we are not privy to as readers, but we do leave them with Dylan laughing openly, like giggling with delight. And Elaine's like, suspicious, like you said.
Yes.
Is she laughing with delight at my plans because she sees a way to her throne for herself, through my silly plans? Or is she just like super stoked with my plans?
Is she laughing at me or with me?
Oh, yeah, exactly. So it's like, we'll have to just raffo, I suppose. But Moritz, I don't know if you've gone ahead and found out. But yes, we know.
We do.
We leave those lovely ladies to hop over to our dastardly Daved Hanlon's point of view. This phenomenal douchebag is also just arriving in Caemlyn, leaving a trail of slimy ooze behind him like a putrid slug. I thought I'd get poetic with him. This city brings back such lovely memories for him of his past soldiering days of looting and murdering and raping his way around the world. His orders were to meet his dark friend overlords at the Red Bull in the new city, because it gives you wings. Down in the basement, he is confronted with a scene that gives even him pause. In the middle of the room, there's a table with 2 holes cut out of it and human beings, naked and bound, sticking out through the top of the table, like shoulder height outside the top of the table. Underneath, they're all bound hand and feet, with like straps holding their heads back onto the table. Quite uncomfortable. In one hole, we found our brandy-loving friend, Carridin. I'm not going to even remember to pronounce his first. Jaichim?
Jaichim.
Moritz? Jaichim. Oh, okay. It's Jaichim for me. Carridin. He seems to have run out of relatives for Madral to torture and murder. He's the last of his line. And in the other hole is our long-lost Black Aja friend, Faile. Remember her?
I do.
She's back. She's been missing. Here she is. And presiding over this whole affair is the lady, in air quotes, Cheyenne, or Cheyenne. I don't remember how we pronounce it. Remember her? Last time we saw her was in Ibu Dar, wasn't it? The horse races? And then at the house in the city?
In Carridin's house.
In Carridin's house, yeah.
Carridin had her face down on a desk, holding her down with one hand and like stabbing a little ant through the leg right in front of her face.
How the tables have turned.
Oh boy.
So yeah. All our old friends. It's a good old fuckface reunion here. It was terrible. So when Hanlon really sees Falian's face, because when he's looking at, they had like bags over their head, I imagine, or if I recall correctly. When they are taken off, he sees Falian's face and realizes she's an Aes Sedai and like immediately goes for his sword to draw it. Cheyenne sees this and she's like, so you're not an idiot like most of these dark friends I've been working with, particularly this guy in the hole right here. And she goes on about how the great master Moradin once Carridin punished for his multitude of failures. And Hanlon's like, wait a minute, my orders came from Mogedian. But he's like, he is a clever little dark friend, so he realizes now's not the time to bring that up. Don't start throwing names around.
Smile and nod. Yes.
Yes, just yes, ma'am, is what you should be saying. So Carridin's head is like strapped back on the table, like I said, with like a wooden block in his mouth with a hole drilled through it and a funnel placed in it. And this is when some hulking dark friend assistant, who's been skulking in the corners this whole time, picks up a barrel of cheap brandy and just pours the whole thing down, and Carridin gurgles and drowns. in it, bringing much delight to Cheyenne or Cheyenne. How do we pronounce that? I'm going to say Cheyenne.
Millie
Skane.
Skane. That's the one.
Yes. All right, we'll call her. She doesn't deserve this name. So she then gestures to the Dark Hulk to remove Fallion's gag, and she immediately begins begging for mercy and promising, I'll do whatever it takes. And Cheyenne's like, I'm willing to give you a second chance. Moradin gave your punishment to me. I can do whatever I want. But if I do put you back into service, you've got to really take to your tasks with much more enthusiasm than you've been previously doing. Really playing with her, but Fallion is begging. She's like, whatever you want, I'll do whatever you want. And she says, because Morradin gave me another one, so I don't see why I need you. So Morradin gave her another Aes Sedai under her charge. I wonder who the other one is.
Wonder.
I read that. So she has a backup Aes Sedai.
She got a replacement.
Faile, I'll take you in, but you fuck up just once. You're dead. I've got another Aes Sedai waiting in the wings. I don't really need you. So, yeah, but she lets Faile live. And then turning to Hanlon, she asks him if he'd like to put his hands on a queen. And we end the chapter with Hanlon licking his lips with anticipation and us throwing up our breakfasts.
Quite
that
right.
Douchebag, slimy, scummy.
He is the worst. The worst part about him is that when he starts making moves on Elayne, she kind of has to go. She feels like she has to go along with it to draw attention away from her relationship with Rand or something. Or when it's found that she's pregnant later, she doesn't quieten the rumors that it could be Handon's kids, so that no one finds out it's the Dragon Reborn's kids and comes after her. And
he's getting the wrong message because of that.
Yeah. Ugh. He's so gross.
Fun and games coming over there.
Yeah.
Do you guys remember where we last read about Daved Hanlon?
He was in the tent.
Yes.
With Pain and Fane during that attack.
He was working for Torum, right?
Yeah. But now Torum and him, that we learned in the last recording that we did, that Torum and him have gone, and Pain and Fane have gone missing, and then Hanlon turns up here.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, Vil, we've got a bit to do there. We've got the kin section, we've got the arrival and the chat with Dylan section, and then we've got the Millie Skane section. Did you have anything you wanted to say about those?
No, it's just in the kin section and the very sad passing murder of Elias that was a tearjerker.
Oh yeah,
and I think it was very, very well written, especially around. And I mean, you can vividly see the reactions of Van Dien, stopping Lan and Lan, accepting okay, cool, this is not.
It's not
he
my
has
place
to let this play out. This is not my place, and how she plays it cool and calm until she's asked to have a moment with her sister, and then in the privacy of the blood-soaked hut, breaks down. That was a real.
I heard that scream from outside. from outside the book.
They were super close. They were finishing each other's sentences and stuff. They were really, really close.
Well, I mean, absolutely. And I mean, she admits look, their days were few. The end was coming, but I suppose the gruesomeness of how it came to end to her is palpable in these few pages. So that was a very standout moment.
After that, when they're riding, there's a line that says, "James' eyes carried a silent promise of death that surely rode in Van Dien's heart also." Do not fuck with these two now.
You're in trouble.
And I think Van Dien does eventually get her revenge. She is the one that kills Cairhien. I think she stabs her or something as well.
Awesome.
Let's set ourselves up for a callback then, shall we?
Well, that's all yours. But I mean, Jaichim Carridin drowning in a
cheap brandy as well.
in a VAT 69.
Odomeester.
That was Odomeester. Yeah, look, that is just poetic. It reminded me of what is that movie with Brad Pitt, where the killings for the 7 deadly sins, or what's it?
Oh,
7.
7. Oh yeah. 7.
Yes.
It was in my thought. And the overeating. It's a little bit of reminded me of that.
It made me think of, what was that? What's that George Clooney movie where they're in Iraq and they steal all the like Iraqi gold? Like it's part
Kings,
of Three Kings or something like that.
Kings.
There's a section where there's a guy sitting and they stick a CD in his mouth and then pour crude oil into his mouth. Like a similar
that's
scene.
right. I didn't even think of that.
Jeez, guys.
That's pretty rough.
Yeah, that's
Dark episode.
That's 2 rough scenes. But I mean, I was not so moved about the passing of his brandy-loving face. I mean, he was the last of his lineage.
Do you remember where we last saw Faile?
Wasn't she at that house where Mogideon arrived with all of the Dark Sisters and put that weave on?
She was originally.
Nynaeve's
She got her orders. Because they all got orders.
Didn't she have the balefire rod?
I don't think it was. She may have had it, but that's way back, right? That's in Tanchico. When Mogideon gives them orders in that manor house in Amador, or in Amadisia somewhere, she is sent to Ibudar with Ispen. They're the 2 Black Archer sisters that attack them in the Rahad when they're retrieving the bowl. Faile gets away. Ispen is caught. So this is the failure that Faile is being punished for now, like not retrieving the Bowl of the Winds or securing the cache of... remember Jaichim was there, Lady Cheyenne was there, Faile and Ispen were there. They were all in Ibudar, and here's like this little reunion now, Jaichim, Faile, and Meliscane. But yeah, that's where we last saw Faile. Anything else, Vil? I've got like some tidbits here, little bits and pieces.
So like, I mean, it feels like that chapter is like just tying up kind of the ends towards the book. Like it's just a
checking
few
back in,
tying up things, setting up, checking back in. But despite all of that, for me, as I said, the standout for me is in the emotion of that lost little forest hut. It was like the point where, okay, cool, I'm putting down the book now. This is hectic. This is not hectic in the sense of things that I've consumed in my life in media. I mean,
no, but affecting
many horror movies. But it's just very well written, like minimal in a sense, like the bare minimum, but enough to create a very vivid sort of mind's eye to how it plays out. And I mean, I'm not a crier. I'm definitely not like Jody. I mean, the moment I think he'll weep at like puppy adverts. But I mean, my bottom jaw was quivering a little bit there, and I was like, "Wow, this is good. This is
effective
good in the sense that
economic storytelling.
Effective,
I mean, those are obviously the highlights. I'll rattle off a couple little bits and pieces here, and then we can move along. This is the explosion alluded to at the end of Elayne's last chapter. Chapter 20 ended with 3 days later, the first explosion came. This is the explosion. The kin, obviously, not the murder. I love it when the Aes Sedai react to reminders of the kin's age. When Christian ran away from the towers when Adelaus was an infant, and when she says, I ran away 300 years ago, everyone's like even these Aes Sedai that are super stoic are like, oh shit, they have visible reactions. When the kinswomen that were caught out in their sort of their lie and put back in white, when they walk past the Windfinders point and laugh uproariously.
Yes.
Seems extreme. I dislike the sea folk more and more. The more I read about them, the less I like them. I mean, it's not like I ever liked them, but I mean, conceptually, I would like the idea of them. I mean, sweet, magic-wielding pirates, rad. No, just jerks, all of them. Self-important jerks.
Well, you said it. Pirates.
Yeah. Well, pirates can be fun.
If they're the happy sing-along type of pirates.
Singing sea shanties.
Hollywood pirates. Not real pirates.
Kids pirates. Nynaeve grumbles under her breath something about the man not knowing private from public, like when Lan orders them to be, like when he sends Christian or one of the novices from the kin now to call them, and Nynaeve's like, who's he to like order me around? This is like a reference to their sea folk wedding vows, where like, we're in public now. He's not supposed to be ordering me around. It's only in private where he's allowed to order me around. But then she quickly blushes and like goes along.
Yeah, that's a serious business. Like this is like death.
Yeah, which is why I think she blushes and she's like, "Oh, okay, I'm sorry." Her knee-jerk reaction is to resist and to be annoyed. Then we also get some classic Avienda. She doesn't say much, but at the mention of dark friends in their party, she's like thumbing her knife edge, and for once Elayne is like not judgmental of it. Like Avienda's ready to also stab a bitch. And then, oh man, the section with Dylan. My note is like, shit. Okay, we're getting into it now. These Andorran nobles and their names. It's this stuff in book 10 that I'm resisting the most out of the whole series. Like this section of the book specifically. And here we get our first taste of the wider politics. So we've been introduced to a couple, we were introduced some nobles when Gabriel was in charge. Then when Rand comes back and some of the nobles are around, some of Gabriel's sycophants are still sort of like skulking around the castle, and Rand eventually sort of just distances himself from them. We read about some of them on the border of Mirundi and Andor, where Egwene has just met with some of these Andorran nobles. But there are just so fucking many of them. So I wanted to quickly do that thing I said I was going to do with the Aes Sedai. I'll just quickly rattle off some of these. Some of them I don't even have any detail with, and some of them just have basically the same story and can just be lumped together, and you don't need to keep track of the individuals. But Aramilla, who Dylan says won't really have the support, is the one person that mounts the biggest challenge to Elayne by actually laying siege to Caemlyn.
Shit.
Yeah. So Aramilla did not support Morgase's rise to the throne and had to swear fealty to her after the fact, purely because she was then queen. So not a fan of the track and
old beef.
Yeah. She was a crony of Gabriel's. She hung around Gabriel and was into Gabriel. Makes sense. And then she later orchestrates the siege of Andor and is stripped of her estates after the fact. So Elayne eventually, just strips her of all her lands and gives them away. Nayan and Elayne are the two nobles that we read ages ago that Dylan had imprisoned, right? Like they sort of put forward their claims to the throne, and someone else delivers this message to Rand or someone saying, Dylan has done this thing and you can probably trust her because her actions certainly speak as if she is loyal to Elayne. Nayan and Elayne are later freed from capture by Aramilla, the one, my little mnemonic device, or my little way of remembering that Aramilla is the linchpin of the resistance to Elayne is Aramilla, the queen killer. Like that's how I'm going to remember. She's the one that is trying to get one over on Elayne, but she frees Nayan and Elayne and then holds them hostage herself and takes control of their forces. And it's Aramilla, Nayan, and Elayne that actually mount an attack on Caemlyn, focused on a specific gate. But they are overcome eventually and defeated, and the siege of Caemlyn is over. Then Caemlyn was loyal to Morgase, but exiled during Gabriel's time. So I think this was her friend. Remember, like she had a really loyal friend that she was suddenly turned into a cold bitch and then, sent her away. Arathel was also loyal to Morgase, but exiled during Gabriel's time, and Pelivar the same. They all stay neutral during the siege of Caemlyn. So they camp nearby, not helping Aramilla, but also not helping Elayne. So all of these, Caemlyn, Arathel, Pelivar, Abel, Luan, and Elorian are that's half the major houses in Andor. They do not take part in the standoff between Elayne and Aramilla, the Queen Killer.
That's too many names to remember.
It's too many. Too many. Then the last note I had was about Millie Skane, or Lady Cheyenne. I almost said Doylan Millar, which is, I think, what Daved Hanlon, I think that becomes his fake name. But he notes that Lady Cheyenne had a noble accent, but real name Millie Skane is a saddler's daughter from near Whitebridge. She killed the real Lady Cheyenne, who was from an impoverished house in Andor, and then took her name. So Lady Cheyenne is not like a name that she just thought up. It's someone she murdered and then assumed the identity of.
So she's not a noble. So what is
she's
she
not
just
a noble.
Like talking with a Latitar accent?
Yes, she's acting a noble. She's a saddler's daughter from not even in Whitebridge, but near Whitebridge.
Yeah, well, she got hold of the original copy in book form of Mary. What's it? Not Mary Poppins. The rain in Spain falls mainly on the plain. My Fair Lady.
Right.
Wow. Okay.
Tiffany's something.
Go back.
Enough. She also, obviously, and I probably don't need to remind you, but it was the fox-faced woman that tried to stab Rand and Matt with a dagger that hissed when it was dropped in the water.
Oh, we remember her.
I'm sure Villy remembers
Because
her.
she didn't get killed because they liked ladies too much.
Mm-hmm.
And we have spoken about her. Like, if you go to the end of the book, she's still alive after the last battle. Like, she doesn't get her come up.
No. Resourceful. Scrappy young assassin from Andor.
From just outside Whitebridge.
Yeah. All right, then let's move along to chapter 29, called A Cup of Sleep. As our resident expert of things in cups, please give us a rundown, Villy.
I thought you were going to give a segue of put us to sleep with your...
No, I don't want that. In fact, I will take a sip from my cup.
All right. This is one of the rare chapters where there are multiple point of views and changes over. Mm-hmm. Our first section here is with Min, and I say they because Min is with Rand in Cairhien, in the palace, and Rand is now aware of Elayne's actions. The news, the fire has spread, as it does with Dias Damar, and Elayne, the news have come that Elayne has claimed the throne, and Min is annoyed that Rand doesn't want to go and see her. She's really annoyed. She's made peace with it. He needs to now also get on board and go and see her. Go have a big fat kiss. And Rand is angry because she took down all the dragon memorabilia in the palace, and he sees it in the wrong way, but she's just trying to restore her claim, her house, and also her authority. And as we learn, amongst massive challenges that she'll be facing from all other houses. But Rand is having a fat sook about it, to the point where poor, what's his name now? Morr, Fedwin, trying to figure out, and Min says, oh, no, the Dragon Reborn is just still a human, still a man, and he's having a little fat bout about it. Rand not stoked about all of these comments. There's a quick reference back to Matt, and Rand stating that he believes that Matt is still alive, and he would have felt, because we don't know where Matt is at this stage. Matt has been absent for quite a while. Now the maidens have been pretty shoddy at gatekeeping Rand's rooms, and people are just allowed in as they want and will, if they're not perceived to be a obvious threat and danger. But Sorelia enters, and in tow is a group of 5 black-clad women following her in. At a gesture of her leathery old hands, they fall in line on the setting sun on the floor. Rand walks up to them, pulls back their hoods, and we have a reveal of dirty faces, sweaty hair, and eyes telling of very learned experiences.
Datsang.
Sorelia's Datsang, guys. Obviously, men at this stage have to put on some sunglasses because the auras are just flashing all over the shop. Now, I'm going to quickly run through because these ladies do have a really big part of the story, apart from what they have done in the past to Rand. And a quick reminder, these are the ones that were captured at Dumas Wells. So it's Elza Penfell, Nasun Bihara, Serene Nemdal Baldine, Nairam, and Erian Boreleos. Sorelia names them Datsang, and she mentions that they feel their shame into their bone now. But because they are Datsang, their toe is not to be met to her, and we, and I can only think we in this one is the collective of wise ones, have decided that the choice is to be left to Rand, how he wants to deal with them. And Rand sort of, okay, Min shudders at that, like, oh shit, he might just stab them with the speary point of his Sonshan scepter. But he walks up to them and says, okay, cool, well, maybe I should put you in a box. How would you feel about being put in the box? Anyway, the first one to react is Erion, who the Ileana and in Baal Doman wordage says, we do be wrong. We do make bad choices, but we must help you. And if you accept, I will be there. As for Baldine, she references her battle archer and says, like, look, the fight is coming. I need to be on your side. We have to be there by your side. And Min has a quick viewing of her bonding an Ashaman. Serene then comes with the typical white Aja representation of being logical. And at the time that her mission was put to her, it was logical. And in time, digging holes and counting rocks has also driven other logical thoughts. But it's a logical approach to why she needs this forgiveness and wants to be more involved. Now, Nasun, being brown, has a very straight up, like, look, then I can study you. Someone needs to do this. She's interested in the studying approach. And then we've got Elza, who has a really big reaction, dropping to her knees, kissing the floor, admitting that he's the Dragon Reborn, and I must be there to help you. I must be there at the last battle with you. But a notable difference to the way that she reacts to Rand versus the others.
She is Black Archer.
Sorry, this. Yeah, you back in my chapters again. I'll get there.
We're all in this chapter together.
This is where Rand asks them whether, okay, cool. Actually, this is where I ask them whether it's how would they like to be put in the box. At this point in time, Min, who has been keeping shaded eyes on their auras, now sees a aura that she recognizes, because a lot of it she doesn't understand and recognize, which is a glow of green, and Min knows immediately that they will all serve him in their fashion. Rand holds great trust in Min's viewings, and tells them that they can swear fealty to him the same way that Kuruna did. And they did. They swore the fealty one after the other. Now, backstory time of these women. We know that Eliza Penfell is Black Archer. She is and has been compelled by none other than Perrin to serve Rand.
Hmm.
So she's got these conflicting oaths, bonds, I don't know what I'm going to use here, on her. And it eventually actually kills Sangar. So it's she kills a Forsaken in the act of protecting Rand, but she also gets killed by Rand with Balefire. So that will come eventually. And then, as for all of the rest of them, they nearly all serve Rand to the last battle. That is, they will now form a great part in the next actions of going after Rand. When Rand cleans the source, there's a lot that they're going to be involved in. So we will now have to keep tabs and sort of see their
we will read these names again.
These names will be, they will be part of the fold. And yes, one of them does bond an Ashaman. And what we need to see for me most notably is Elsa is so compelled by what Varen has done to her that her falling onto the floor, groveling, should almost stand out. That this is not Aes Sedai behavior. Like the majority of Aes Sedai are still somewhat serene in their approach to this, and down to their approach to why they feel they need to be there or why they need to be forgiven.
Well,
all four of them, except for her, has got a stance that falls in line with their ajas, their rank, and everything.
The others were also compelled by Varen. She questioned all of them. Remember, like she was asking for one and then sending in the next one, starting on the ones without warders first. She worked through all of them. What I thought was noteworthy about Elsa's behavior is that she's Black Aja. So she's been behaving this way in front of other Black Aja sisters or Forsaken. Like for her, it's normal to throw yourself at the feet of someone and grovel for your life. That's why I thought her.
That I didn't even think about.
That's like the distinguishing factor between her and the others is not the compulsion; it's the Black Ajaness. Is my thought. Was my read.
Yeah.
Right. Interesting.
She's used
all right,
to,
now
bowing and scraping. Like, yeah.
That's how they operate.
Sense. That's how you level up.
And avoid death.
All right.
Or worse.
Sorelia would like to lead them out now, but first she tells Rand that Cadsuane is under the roof again, and he needs to stop avoiding her. To which Rand promptly thinks that it is time to stop and actually face off with Cadsuane. He steps up to the dais to get his scepter and his crown of swords, and at the last minute he decides to leave it. So maybe he thought, okay, I'm not going to go to Cadsuane with the authority of scepters and crowns, or maybe it's Ta'Veren at that moment. Well, I don't know. There's things that I'm thinking about there.
When he offers, or when he asks Cadsuane to be his advisor, he says, I am now the king of Elayne, and kings have advisors. Will you be my advisor? And she goes, nah, pass. I don't want to take orders and stuff. So I think he is learning to not try and coerce her into behaving a certain way because of his rank or his title or anything like that. I think trying to use a crown to intimidate Cadsuane, he realizes is like, nah, it's not going to do anything.
Not going to work. Okay, that is part of the thinking that I had. We'll get to the other one that I thought. Now, as they leave, he asks Min before he leaves, like, look, are you coming with? She jumps to her feet like, yep, I'm there. Min is never going to shy away, even from Cadsuane. They pass 6 maidens at the door. They don't follow. Visually still upset with Rand. He's like, oh, they're going to get over it at some point in time.
Maybe.
Rand, while walking, maybe not, maybe they'll die. Rand then starts issuing sort of, because Fedwin, Morr, comes with him. He seems to be his right-hand man from the Ashaman side that's with him. And uncomfortably so during all of this interaction with the Aes Sedai. He fiddles with his buttons. He's a young man who's not quite so sure of all of these things happening around him. Rand then tells them what to look for with Catswain. Min, are you seeing any viewings? And while this is still going down, a thunderous explosion, and Min is thrown to the ground. The explosion has ripped through Rand's rooms. Min is, as I said, thrown to the ground. Rand gets her up. She's like, what? And before the what, you can see the roof is gone. You can see the sky outside, snow, all the rest. Is more sort of a who, more the who now of all of this. Rand grabs Fedwin, says to him, can I trust you? And he replies, with my life, my Lord Dragon. Rand tells him, well, that is what I'm trusting you with. And he tells him to guard Min with his life, not to use the power, not to make a gateway, because the minute he uses the power, he will be a target. And he duly does so, and it's the end of that perspective of the chapter, out of Min's perspective. And now we in Rand's head, or as I like to call it, Rand and Lou's head. Because
Rand and Co.
Lou's is awake. Rand and Co. Where are they? They're exactly where we left them, and the mood is pretty angry. Rand is not stoked. So Rand starts the hunt for this Forsaken that has come for him. Like, who is this? This is someone and he's thinking Demandred. Is it Asmodean? Asmodean got ended, but not by you. He weaves a shield with very little power around him. That's kind of like a mask of mirror, an illusion. So he can slip cloak of invisibility, mischief managed. And yes. he has maidens running past him that's veiled, and he keeps thinking like, look, he's not going to announce to anyone because he's not going to lead any more maidens to their death and slaughter, because he's got a lot of names to remember, and on top of Samadrit of the Black Rock Terrain, he also has got to learn who the other 5 were that he didn't know, that because they were at the door and his rooms were demolished, and they were part of the demolished people that were at the room. So Rand does not want to be found by any of the maidens, not because they can't fight for him, but he doesn't want to lead them to the slaughter, as I said. Rand spots Catswain with 6 sisters, and it appears that they are also on the hunt, going through the corridors. Rand gets to a corridor, a door pops open, and Elayne pops her head out. And behind her is, some Shalon, Den Dragon, and he's like, things like odd of it, Tagara, but he's like, but Elayne spots him. So he's like, oh, I'm going to deal with this real quick. And he rumples them up real quick, binds them with strips of bed sheet, and tucks them in under the bed and gags them and shields the Windfinder and ties it off and says, well, that will last for at least 2 days. Someone will find them. They're safe, and they're not going to cause any trouble. Backstory time. They were having some kerfuffling. They're having a little affair, much to the dismise of Shalon, who doesn't want to be shamed because she's married. So they were going to be found in a later scene by Catswain, who is also going to use this against them, much like Perrin, I think, does the same thing. So,
golden opportunity.
There's a little bit of ammunition, and it's going to be exploited. After the 2 of them, as I said, is left and gagged and shielded, Rand moves on. 50 paces down the corridor is a grand hall, and it's got a balcony-style entry with big stairways down to the left and right, and then massive tapestries and the mirror image of it on the opposite end of this hall. And Rand sees Dashiva, Gedwyn and Rochaid. Gedwyn not hearing Rand's, and Rand hears him saying like, no, he's certain he didn't feel anything. And what he's referring to is Rand had to channel that shield on Shalom, and thinking like, ooh, if anyone was close, they would have felt that channeling. But Gedwyn is saying, no, he's convinced he's dead. But Dashiva sees Rand, and the only warning that Rand has is a snarl from Dashiva. And as quickly as Dashiva can weave and throw fire at Rand, Rand weaves a weave of air, fire, and earth just so. A shield that he doesn't really know, so it was Lu's doing it, because at that time Lu's like, I warned you, you should have killed them all. Now you see it was them. He goes nuts. The only time Lu shuts up in Rand's head is when Rand spots Cadswain. Then Lu's like, I'll be quiet over here. Like, don't talk much now. Cadswain's in the room. But as this weave sets over Rand, nothing can penetrate it. And Rand immediately realized, like, nothing can penetrate this except balefire. And also realizes, oh shit, I can't breathe. Air can't even penetrate it. So lets it go, has a quick breathe, but then out of his left hand sends 3 tendrils of red laser wires out and explosions. And with that, Rand is quickly back up onto his feet, because only an idiot lies where he channeled. But Rand knows the palace and finds back past Adel's room, servants' corridor, little staircase down, and decides to go like under the room to the other end where the other balcony is. When he gets to that end, he just finds the room. There's no evidence of their corpses. Pretty much white burned up. There was a lot of magic burning that went down there, but they're gone. A servant spots Rand and faints on the spot. Another one spots him and screams, "The Dragon Reborn is killing everyone! Help!" Runs away.
Sure does look like it.
Yeah.
Well, it surely does. Now, Rand then decides, like, no point in trying to hide myself now, because at this stage, everyone's hiding from him. So, like, the empty corridors, empty hallways. But he goes back and forth, and eventually he sees a black coat and throws a little bit of fire lightning bolts at it, only with a big cry out, "Ah, my Lord Dragon, it's me, Narishma and Flynn. Like, settle down, let the blood cool." And Rand has this inner monologue, like, did I know it was him? And did I really actually want to kill him? Made a bit of a lose, like, kill them all. There's little hints of Rand not controlling this event. I feel like it's the shield and the immediate cast that Rand says to himself he recognized Narishma, but still the attack went out. Anyway,
he doesn't trust them.
He doesn't trust them for sure now. So 4 hours after that event, Rand carried on searching, and he found nothing but more pain for himself. Change of perspective. Later on, we're back in the perspective of Min, and they're now deep in the bowels, somewhere in the roots of the castle palace. And Fedwin Morr is sitting on the ground, playing with blocks. He was adamant to protect Min, but it would appear that in losing his mind at that stage, he was going to pull bricks out of the foundations to build a tower to protect Min in. It took Rand to come in and shield him, so he cannot touch the power, and now he's left with playing with children's blocks, speaking like a child. "You'll see, Min, I'll protect you, see, I'll build you a tower." And it's a very grim feeling
It was Min that convinced him to use the blocks instead, right? Like, there was a time where Rand wasn't there and he wasn't shielded, and Min had to like talk him down and calm him down and say, yeah, use these blocks and stuff. So there was a time when Rand wasn't there and there was a real danger of him actually pulling bricks out of the wall and stuff, and Min had to make him feel safe.
Settle him down. Use her teacher voice. But yes, he unfortunately lost it in the protection of Min. Rand is staring, not blinking, a carved, hard face, grey eyes. When Mazrim Taim arrives, and Rand really pissed off with him, like walking around holding up to the power, like, what the fuck are you thinking? And coming here, Taim felt it necessary to come and report some deserters to cover his tracks, obviously. Gedwyn, Rochaid, Torval, and after the fact, always. Gedwyn, Rochaid, Torval, and Kisman. Rand tells him to add Dashiva to that list as well, and also with a great expectation that their heads will be hanging on the traitor's tree by next time he goes to the tower. Taim then offers to take this one with him, and Rand is not stoked about that. He says, like, his name is Fedwin Morr, and I will take care of him. And reminded me of Fight Club. His name is
Robert Paulson.
Robert Paulson. I was going to say Robert Palmer, but I knew that was Robert. Didn't want to create a callback for myself. He then gives Fedwin a mug of wine, who drinks it and rests his head on Rand's chest and closes his eyes, goes to sleep, and breathes slower and then stops breathing. And Min is fighting every tear that is building in and that she won't start, but she wants Rand to just be a man, or not a man, just like it's okay to cry.
Yes.
And Taim, looking at this, actually acknowledges, like, you are harder than I thought. But he gets sent off and told, do not return here. I will be traveling around for a bit, and you will stay at the Black Tower.
Yeah.
And that is pretty much the end of that chapter. Another tear.
Trying not to try. I'm trying not to cry. Yeah, that was.
I'm not crying.
Man.
It's raining in my eyes.
You're crying. I'm not crying. That is. Yeah.
Ew. Double blow, hey? Like another blow. Like just between, like, the big showdown with the Sean Chan. Also, by the way, Adelaide gets murdered. And also, Rand has to kill Fedwin Morr, who is basically a child in that moment. You know? Like, wow. Yeah.
There's a couple of things there that stood out for me. One was, if you think about Min trying to calm him down, remember she was trapped in a dungeon with a clearly insane male channeler by herself. Like, and she had to take charge of that situation and calm this crazy fucker down.
Yeah.
Like, shitballs. He's ripping stones out of the walls and shit around, and she's like, easy now.
Yeah.
And she took charge.
Oh, look at these blocks. Let's play with these blocks.
Yeah, the teacher voice.
Thank God for those blocks that was in that dungeon room.
Yeah, like she didn't know where those children's
blocks in a dungeon.
Well, they were in the children's dungeon, Billy. You know? The other thing was that Rand has that knowledge from Nynaeve to poison the wine. Like, he knows how to make poison. And the part for me was that when he's holding and feeding him this poisoned wine, he's looking right at Taim. He doesn't take his eyes off Taim. He's eyeballing him while he does it and pours this poison down his
This could be you. Like, don't make me feed you some wine.
So it's like, and that's when Taim's like, whoa, man, you're harder than I thought.
Yeah. They also, when I say they, I mean RJ sort of, he plants the breadcrumbs. Obviously, we having read the story, you read the name of this chapter, you're like, oh, fuck, here it comes. This is it. You know what's coming. And then you read things like, Rand looks at Morr earlier in the day and he goes, he looked younger than ever. It's like setting you up, and then like he has this childlike reaction when he's like playing with his buttons and stuff, and then later there's another thing where he giggles nervously.
Slow progression to it.
Totally, yeah. But the signs are all there, and then when it happens, you're like, oh God, heartbreaking.
When I first read him playing with his buttons, I thought it was him being nervous because they were arguing, and he was like, I don't want to get involved in what this couple's argument, and he's kind of like, like. That's what I thought, but then when you get to the end and you see what happens to him, you're like, oh no, he was playing with his buttons because they were shiny and he was a kid.
Yeah. Or maybe like a kid, like nervous, like parents arguing sort of thing, like, anything to like distract them from what's happening around them. Oh, this button.
I'm thinking he's like, oh, there's a fight going on. Oh, look, shiny button. Just easily distracted like a child.
Yeah.
Like he was also the one that very spied so incredibly well on the Seanchan, and then had to come across that brigade and had to kill
them.
All of them.
Yes. And dispose of their bodies.
All the evidence away. And I think it feels like that was like the catalyst to the starting of his madness.
He wasn't the same after that. Like I think Rand notices that he is he's putting up a brave face about it. Like, I had to do what I had to do, but Rand could tell that he was a little bit off. And even that button thing, Joe, Rand had noticed that he'd been doing it a lot that day, to the extent that Rand had noticed that he was playing with his buttons and stuff a lot. Like you see it coming, and it doesn't make it any better. In fact, it makes it worse.
Yeah.
It's like that scene. We keep referencing other movies, but it's like that scene from Saving Private Ryan where that guy stabs him through the chest, like really slowly. He's going
so slowly.
Just a slow bayonet through the chest. That's how I felt.
A lot of feels in this, like a lot of feels.
Yeah.
But I think this is also a big startup now for Rand, because the discussion about the healer and referencing Nynaeve, the herbs and that, but also a lot of talk about healing, and Rand having to at that point in time mercy kill Fedwin is like, I think like he needs to clean this. He needs to get rid of this madness, this taint.
Yeah,
is a very big kick up the butt now for that thing to get into motion.
Very much so. I mean, Phil, you haven't even read the prologue to Winter's Heart, and Joe, I think you haven't gotten to the point yet, but there is a section with Rand where he's with Min, and that he's basically stating outright, okay, now I'm going to go cleanse the source, but before I do that, I'm going to hunt down these traitors and kill them. That's like Rand's whole plot for book 9. That's what he's going to do. So it's like you said, he already said in this book, he announced to, remember like when he was sort of thinking out loud, like, I could cleanse the source if I do this. And everyone is like, all the Ashaman in the room with him are like, what? And Dashiva especially is like, what are you saying? Cleanse the source? No, my boss put that there. Don't do that. But like, he was thinking about it. And even in his meeting with Cadsuane, when she says to him that Kalandor has a flaw, he's like, okay, cool, I can't use this, and I wanted to use it, but I've got something else that I'm going to use, and I guess that's my only option. So it's the Kudenkal that he's going to use for cleansing. Yeah. So yes, it is very much in his mind, and absolutely this event would have been like, okay, put everything else aside now, except maybe revenge, and go do.
But I could do two of those two things at the same time.
Yes.
I'll multitask for this.
Yeah. That's obviously the real emotional gut punch and the thrust of this chapter. That's why it's called A Cup of Sleep. But there's a couple other things that happen here. Joe, did you want to say anything about the Aes Sedai that come and swear fealty? Because remember that also happened. Sorrelia's interactions with Rand.
I remember that also happened. No, not anything. It's pretty much covered and discussed it. The weird behavior by Elsa, was it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's about it. We've cleared that up.
Okay, so let me clear up. I'll just sweep up my last little dropped morsels, and then we can proceed to the very end here. Rand still wakes up sweating from his torture in the box. Like Min talks about how Rand still wakes up with like night terrors and stuff. So that torture is still very fresh in his mind. And then she also mentions the fact that to the Aiel, and we said this many, many episodes ago, to the Aiel, the betrayal is far worse than the torture that they exacted afterwards. To them, the real sin is the betrayal that they enacted.
Mm-hmm.
I was also wondering, when Sorelea asks Rand to make the decision about the Aes Sedai, with one glance at Min, she makes her understand that she must not influence Rand's decision, as she often does with her viewings, right? Like, Sorelea is she's addressing Rand, but like one quick look to Min. She gives Min a look, and Min knows, I'm not supposed to interfere here. It's all Rand. Min also thinks that it's not like the wise ones to let Rand or anyone else make choices like this. So I was wondering, like, what is Sorelea's game here? Is this like a test for Rand?
Yeah.
Like, what is he going to do with these Aes Sedai? Which is pretty cool.
Whatever it is, she's stoked with the outcome at the end. She's got like a little nod to Min at the end, like, okay. So whatever the test was, I think Rand passed.
Yes.
Maybe to see his humanity, because
we know
on about that.
Yeah.
We know that Sorelea and Cat Swain has got a little pact.
Yes.
I don't think it's in Cat Swain to want to see any other sisters get killed or stilled or anything. That could potentially play into that. Or maybe Sorelea wants to see that Rand himself has got compassion as well.
Yes.
Like they datsang, and they have, and what was the exact line?
The easy thing for Rand to do would be to like execute them, right? Like, they tortured him and tried to kidnap him. Like, she is trying to see, how is Rand going to behave against, because she and Cadsuane are working together to try and teach Rand to laugh and cry again. So here's a test for Rand. How does he treat these women that have like so badly wronged him? And when she leaves the room and she stops at the door and she turns back and she's like, by the way, Cadsuane is here. Don't leave her deal with her, because she's got to deal with Cadsuane. She knows Cadsuane is working on the same thing from the other side. So she's pushing Rand like, okay, you've done this thing. Great. Now go talk to Cadsuane so that she can work on you and get you to learn how to laugh and cry and stuff again. So Sorelea is absolutely pushing Rand into Cadsuane's arms.
So Sorelea says that she thinks that they feel their shame to their bones, and that they have been getting up now, asking for their morning beating and asking for their noon beating. So but the toe is not to be repaid to the wise ones.
No.
So like, if anything can impress Sorelea, then okay, well.
Also, maybe a test for Rand's Aielness. Like, does he understand Ji'ito and
all of the above?
The mechanics of it.
It's probably like just a straight up litmus test. Like, where's this guy at? How's he going to treat these guys?
How mad is he?
Yeah. It turns out.
How insane.
Mad as a hat.
Yes.
You know that.
Pretty fucking crazy.
There's mention here of the face that Rand sees when he channels. It's unrecognizable.
Oh, yes.
But it's probably just the clarity of the image, not an unfamiliarity with the face. He's met Moradin in Shadow Logoth, admittedly in the dark, and he sees Luce Theron's face in Tel'aran'rhiod when he's chasing Ravin around the palace in Caemlyn, like when he sees himself turn into Luce Theron and stuff. So I think he knows what both Moradin and Luce Theron look like, but the face is unrecognizable. But I think it's just indiscernible. It's not that he sees a face he doesn't recognize. It's just it's still too blurry. And I think it gets much like the colors that for Matt and Perrin later. I think it gets clearer and clearer over time.
They start seeing through each other's eyes.
Oh, yeah. He said, as if you remembered that.
I bought it, Moritz.
I found it hard to read about Rand wanting to kill Flynn and Narishma, just because I know them and I know that they are loyal and they are great. I mean, Flynn saved Rand's life and everything. I'm just glad that Flynn has the brains to recognize Rand's blood is running hot and that maybe they should keep their distance for the time being. It's like, everyone's blood is running a bit hot. We're just going to hang back here. Let's avoid each other. And Rand's like, yeah, maybe that's a good idea. Because Rand straight up lies about not recognizing them and then asks them to come closer. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't recognize you. Come over here. It's safe. And they're like,
I won't kill you.
I honestly think...
Yeah.
I think it was Luz taking or gaining some control. And why I say that, there's an argument in and amongst that battle where Rand says, like, I will die me. I will not die as you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there is a bit of, as soon as the
blurring of the lines,
the shit hits the fan, the blurring starts. Luz very quickly saved Rand's life in shielding him against whatever Dashiva threw at him. Rand didn't know what it is, but he recognized it. And there's a bit of writing, or a method of writing, when some weaves are made, and they're always saying, just so. Look out for it now when there's a writing about a weave, because it's also when Nynaeve learns something. It's always just like, just so. So it's kind of, I don't know if it's a little hidden tidbit, but I don't think that Rand throughout that was in full control. And I think that every time Luz sees an Ashaman, he wants to kill them all.
Yes.
And Rand realizes that he did recognize Narishma and Flynn, but he still attacked them.
I think there's even more going on here. I think you're right. I think that Luz's desire to kill the Ashaman is influencing Rand's actions. I mean, Rand channels via Luz since book 1, right? He's been making weaves just so the entire series. But you're right that Luz, he mentions here, I told you we should have killed all of them from the beginning. Fuck these guys. Everyone in a black coat needs to die. You know, like that is certainly true. Also, Min was just attacked, right? So Rand, Thor, not Luz, is fucking livid. And it was Saidin. He knows it was an Ashaman or a Forsaken that attacked him. And when he runs into when he runs into Flynn and Narishma, is it after Gedwyn and Dashiva and those guys?
Yeah, well after they slipped him.
So already Ashaman did this to him, because he doesn't know Dashiva is Agenor, right? Like he's just seen 3 Ashaman conspire against him. Luthen is ranting in his head, we should have killed them. Min has just been attacked. She's almost died. Rand is fucking pissed. Yes, I mean, yes, it's fine. It's safe. Come closer. Like he is being purposefully duplicitous there. That's not Luce Theron talking to them. It's Rand talking to them. I feel like Rand in that moment is like, no, Narishma Flynn, come over here so I can murder you. But everything is safe. Everything is cool. I think all of those things together, and I mean, this has just happened as well, right? So Flynn is right. Like his blood is running real hot. It's interesting that Taim is surprised that Dashiva is one of the traitors. Like he doesn't flinch at any of the names. Rochaid, Gedwyn, Torval, Kisman, Dashiva. Ooh, now he's surprised. You know, like, did Taim tell Gedwyn and Rochaid and those guys to attack Rand? They're his cronies. They're all dark friends at this point.
I imagine so.
So it is surprising to him that Dashiva was involved. It's like, oh, Dashiva as well?
When do they first call him the Mahail? Because he gets the name when
ages ago.
He is turned, and so at this stage he's completely turned already.
I think so.
Oh, and he has always been.
Does he know that there's a Forsaken in the monk? Because I mean, Forsakens don't just buddy up; they level up against each other.
The Forsaken don't tell each other, right? So like, Moradin probably knows that Osangar is Agenor, is Dashiva, but he's not necessarily telling anyone anything. And I think, setting myself up for a callback here, I think Taim's connection to the Forsaken is via Demandred, not via Moradin. So I don't think he knows. I don't think he knows that Dashiva is Agenor. And that's why he's surprised. Oh, he's also a traitor?
It's plots within plots within plots.
So delicious. It's so good. It's why we love this shit. What else did I have? Oh, just my last note was like, I hate that Taim doesn't wear the sword and the dragon pin that Rand put on him. He had to go and take them off and never put them on again.
I hate that he's got dragons on his arms, on his sleeves.
Yes. Didn't earn those.
Hate it. Well, again, he's just the worst dark friend. I mean, he's Millie Skane level.
Okay, let's head into the final stretch here. I know there's 2 chapters, but the last one is like a page and a half. So this is the real actual last chapter that we will not the real actual last chapter, the last actual chapter. Put the emphasis on the wrong word. It's the red wine. The last chapter that we will deal with in this book, which is chapter 30, called Beginnings. What are we beginning, Jody?
We are beginning a very, very long chase through the snow.
Yeah, I'll set you up for that one.
Because we are back with our long-lost beefy boy.
Oh, yeah.
Perrin's in the house. Perrin's heading into Abila with Elias, Aram, Neild, Grady, Baller, the wise ones Adara and Corel with their Aes Sedai apprentices, Masuri and Sionid, to go see Masema. You got all those names?
Yeah.
Write it down. The Aes Sedai are employing the ancient and effective art of disguise called putting up the hood of your cloak. You're not supposed to see their faces, everyone. And they're getting a stern talking to as well. Like, that thing comes off and they see your face before you're supposed to see your faces. You're going to cock. Yeah. Yes, Mom. Walking through the town, they enter the town. Remember, they were camped outside. That's the town where the queen was.
It's not
so they're
actually
going inside. Is it not?
Abila is the town that Ballward deduces Masema is going to be because the names are the inns.
Right.
We have read the name before.
That's right.
I also thought it was the same town. Like, what? He's in? No. This is where Masema is.
Because if the queen was there, he wouldn't be there. She wouldn't be there if he was in the same town. That makes sense. But anyway, we're walking through said town at this very moment. With, we see the usual prophet's men all lurking around, dirty and wild-eyed. Town is also packed with refugees and everything's smelling of dirt and fear. We get a lot of scent descriptions in this chapter. Perrin has been following Elias's advice on the side, on the Chaldean women, and it's been working. It's been working like a fucking charm. He left both Faile and Elayne behind on this trip, by the way. So he's been raising his voice to Faile and not to Elayne.
Not to Elayne.
Which goes
what magic is this?
Every instinct that he has is to shout at that dumb woman and speak kindly to his wife. But he must do the opposite. But it's working. Like I said, her hurt smell has vanished. And when he told her she wasn't coming today firmly, she actually smelled pleased with him. She's still angry. She still smells angry. But, she's Chaldean, so that's part of the course, buddy. He doesn't know how she can smell pleased and angry at the same time, but... yeah, a little bit. You're learning, my boy. Baby steps. Bulwer at this point excuses himself to go off spying, and Perrin is all for it. He's like, for a secretary, this guy is really good at intelligence gathering. He's like a little Jack Ryan, CIA analyst. Off he goes. They only have to ask one person to find out where Masema is. Everybody in the town. First person you ask, he's over there. So they head to the 4-story merchant's house where he is staying. He has been invited. It's well guarded, of course. Perrin announces that he has come with a message from the prophet, or for the prophet, from the Dragon Reborn. A little rehearsed speech. Baller had warned him not to use Rand's first name and always refer to Masema as the prophet, not by his name, lest they offend the crazies. He also adds his name, Perrin this is, and says that the prophet knows me, like, I'm Perrin, prophet knows me, but this gets the reaction of a few guards who go all wide-eyed and running inside. And they come back with a handsome woman who comes to take them to Masema. Her face is calm, but her scent is that of terror. And Perrin smells weariness then as well. We're getting all the smells from Elias and the Asherman, and the wise ones are ready to go. And he smells eagerness from Aram, and he's just thinking, fucking keep it together, guys, especially you, Aram. Keep that sword on your back. And they enter the place. They get taken up to this great room, and there's Masema. Yeah, he sees Masema. Oh, right. He smells Masema. To Perrin, he smells like madness. He smells like insanity. And Perrin's like, there's no way Rand's putting a leash on this guy. This is not going to work. He's as crazy as a bag of cats. And Masema recognizes Perrin. He's like, so it is you. So I do remember you from our little wet boot session up in the river mountains. And he tells him he knows what he's been up to. And he's surprised that he shows his face here after murdering his men and trying to, claim his own land by raising the flag of Manetheren. He's like, I've got ears everywhere. I'm onto you. He starts going off on Perrin about his greed and his ambition, and he's lost his way. And he just cuts off mid-sentence when he realizes that Seonid and Missouri have lowered their hoods. And he is aware that there are Aes Sedai in his midst. So he cuts off. Everyone is poised for a fight. It's like everyone's on the balls of their feet. Masema is mad, shouting at Perrin. There's like spittle flying everywhere. He's heard rumors of Aes Sedai being with him as well. But he didn't believe them that Perrin would, consort with these women. Perrin tells him that these ones have sworn fealty to the Lord Dragon. All right, raising his voice now. Perrin's getting a little antsy, calling out Masema, in front of everyone, and calling him out by his name. He's like, listen, Masema. Like, he doesn't call him the prophet. Everybody's like, oh. He's like telling him, these Aes Sedai swore fealty to Rand, and they serve him. Do you still serve him? Because he sent me here to stop you from killing everyone and to bring you to him. We're going on a trip, buddy. So he's getting tired of like tiptoeing around now, Perrin that is, and no one offered him a chair either, so he just takes a chair and sits down while everyone's like shock and horror, everyone's faces. Masema and Harry, and I was like, oh yeah, Harry's there too. Mr. Ear Collector from when they met Morr.
Oh, is that him?
They were being that's him.
God damn.
That's the guy that ran away, that they let go free. So there he is again. He seems to be pretty close, chummy with Masema. So Masema tells him, like, listen, man, I've given up the names of men. You may refer to me as the prophet. From now on, I am simply the prophet of the Lord Dragon now. Light illumine him and the world kneel before him. A real loon.
So simply, like a title of the prophet. No name for me. Simple things.
So Masema tells him, like, listen, I'd love to go and see the old Lord Dragon, but I still got a lot of work to do here. Got the Lord's work, some more murdering, and the snow makes it hard to travel. A little delay won't make anything any worse. Perrin tells him, like, listen, I'm going to have you in Cairhien today, and once the Lord Dragon has spoken with you, we'll bring you back the same way. Few days tops should be gone. Masema physically recoils at the mere suggestion of using the power on him. He tells him it's blasphemy for mortals like him to touch it. The Lord Dragon is the light made flesh. He's allowed to use the power. But for us mere mortals, we cannot touch it. Masema says, like, I will obey the summons, but I'm not going by gateway made by Aes Sedai. And Perrin thinks, best not to mention then it would actually be the Ashaman making the gateway. If he knew these black-coated dudes here could channel, I wonder if he does. But we're not gonna. We'll keep that to ourselves since nothing's gonna happen. So Perrin's actually considering just knocking Masema out, like
dragging him off,
just carrying him through a gateway. I thought it was like kind of like B.A. Baracus in the A Team and flying. He never liked flying. They had to drag him and knock him out. And put him on a plane. It's the same thing. So they will ride. So he tells him, like, listen, fuck it, fine then. We'll just get on horses and do this the old-fashioned way. So he tells Masema that Rand is anxious to speak with him, so no more delays. We leave now. Masema replies in the creepiest possible way that he's also very anxious to speak with the Lord Dragon. Very anxious indeed. That's really like hammy
comic book villain.
Like villain. Yeah, comic book villain scene. So we leave them now. We pop over to Faile. She's gone hawking with Queen Elayne. Morgaze is there, or Magden, whatever she's going along with these days. They were there with Bane and Chayad as well. Sulin had wanted to bring all the maidens with, which should have been a very good idea. But Faile thought it best to go like incognito into the countryside. With all these rumors of Aiel everywhere, everyone's freaking out. We don't want to scare the locals, so we'll take a small group. But they did bring 20 of Alyandra's soldiers and another 20 of the Mayana winged guards with them. So they got an escort while they're busy hawking like nobles. Berylaine's there too, unfortunately, ruining Faile's lovely outing to the countryside. But she is wrapped up in multiple layers of coats. For a soft southerner, she can't handle this cold, which amuses Faile to no end. So at least there's that. And she's thinking of how Perrin has finally begun acting like a good Saldean husband, you know. He's barely acknowledging Elayne, and when he does, he tolerates her like a child, and Faile's fucking loving that. Shouting at Faile, like Faile's feeling like I can like get angry and shout at him, and he shouts back. It's amazing.
Thanks, Elias.
And then this... Yeah, she doesn't know. Best not to tell her that either.
Nope.
And this morning, Perrin had firmly commanded her that she'll be staying put. And she's like, well, he commanded me and that was sexy, but I'll have to like push back a little on that.
I'll just ignore it.
Got too much. Yeah. Yeah, I'll do
well
what
done,
I want.
Perrin. Bye.
So just then, 3 riders approach. It's Perrin, Arella, and Lucille of the Faile fame. They are all worked up. They have discovered that Masema has been meeting with the Shaunchan. Faile, you won't believe it. Guess what we found? Faile wants proof. She's like, listen, I need evidence. You need to, but their explanations suffice. They apparently found some reliable people. And she's like, well, if they think that these people are reliable, and they think no one is reliable, this is pretty good then. I feel you've done your due diligence. And also, there was mention of a Rakan. Also, a giant winged creature came out of the sky and took them to Masema.
The tip-off.
So all the people thought that they were shadow spawn, but since we know about them now, it's probably the Shaunchan. So like, oh shit. So Faile's like, he has an excuse for me to go to Perrin right away and ignore him and just go running off as soon as I can. He must know about this right now. He could be in danger. But before anyone can make a move to go tell anyone anything, one of Alejandro's soldiers screams as he takes a Shaido arrow in the throat, falls off his horse, and then all of a sudden, Shaido dogs everywhere. Bane and Chaiad, already veiled up, working their bows. Like, before she turns around and freaks out and looks over her shoulder, these two are going. Just taking down the Shaido dogs with style. Love it. It's not enough, though. Nope. They are just... There's just too many Shaido. Hundreds of fucking Shaido come pouring through because it's like they're in a sparsely treed area. It's not an open plain, but you can see far enough away. And here come fucking Shaido everywhere. She orders, Faile that is, orders Perrin and the other two to get this news to Perrin, and then shouts to everybody like, ride like fire, ride or die here. And she goes off shouting before even waiting for their response. And she's just screaming, ride, ride, ride. Ride or die. But it's not long until her horse Swallow breaks a leg in the snow and goes sending her flying. I think the horse actually got shot with an arrow because there was a scream before its leg broke. But regardless, Swallow is no more. Shed a little tear, another one. And she is like on the ground, knocked the wind out of her. She's struggling to her feet. She's already got a knife out when a large Shaido man looms over her, easily disarming her with a karate chop, cha-cha, to the wrists. And then she resorts to some hand-to-hand combat mixed with some dirty boxing and biting, but this dude is as big as Perrin, so it is futile. So our good old friend Roland, he becomes quite a fixture over the coming book. He grabs her, he's just so strong, finds all her hidden knives, claims them for himself, tucks them behind his belt, and using one of them, cuts all her clothes off, using one of her stockings to tie arms behind her back, and then another one to leash her around the neck. I was like, oh, Jesus, kinky Roland. Take it easy. Leading her naked through the snow, getting himself some Jaichim. He's hoping that she's hoping that someone got away and is able to warn Perrin. But as she's led back to the other prisoners, hope starts to fade as she sees body after body in the snow. First, she sees Perrin. Then she sees Alejandro's men all slaughtered. The winged guards as well are all dead. One of the hawkers, just some random servant with a hawk.
Red
He's
shirt.
dead. His hawk's trying to fly away. Red shirt, yeah. He can't get away because it's just, tied to the wrist of a dead man. Then they get to the other prisoners where she finds Bane and Chaiad naked on their knees. And they are berating Roland, that taking non-Aiel Jaichim is not right. They don't follow Geito. You can't be doing this shit. To no avail though. They're told to shut up. So they shut up and Faile knows they won't fight. Like, these are her two best fighters. Yeah. But she knows about Geito and all of that. She knows no use even bringing it up. They're not going to do it. Roland, not happy though. He thinks capturing all these people is stupid. They're already struggling to make good ground in this snow stuff. He doesn't know how to pronounce the word snow. And all these prisoners are just going to slow them down even more. Like, this is dumb. But there's some other maiden there, and she replies that, look, Savannah wants more Gaichane. And Faile thinks, like, Savannah? Shaido? And she thinks, like, the cold is making her go crazy because, as far as she knows, the Shaido and Savannah are on Kinslayer's dagger the last time that she heard. But here they are nonetheless. Thanks, Samael. So more prisoners arrive. First, Morgaze gets dragged in there, all naked as the day they were born. Then Aliandre as well. She is livid, very much not used to or comfortable with being naked. I suppose, like many people, in the cold snow in front of strangers. Then they bring Arella and Lucille, the other two Charfail. They made it. They survived. Poor Perrin didn't. And the Shaido that's carrying Lucille under his arm like a bag of potatoes just tells him, like, look, that's it. We're done. The rest are dead or they have escaped. This is all there is. So after all this, the worst thing that that is for Faile is that Elayne got away. Like, she's not amongst the dead, so she must have been. She's not captured. She's the one that got away, and she's going to go to Perrin now. Fucking hell. But at least someone's getting to Perrin. Anyway, so that's that. We leave them. Now we hop over to Egwene. She's walking Daishar along a column of initiates. Since they've opened the novice book, I think it's almost a month now. It has been a month, yeah. To everyone, she's gathered almost 1,000 new novices.
It's more than the Aes Sedai.
I did not read. I did not read that wrong, right?
1,000 novices.
1,000 novices.
It's just the novices with the rebels.
Grandmother. Yeah, just now in this little group that she's with. Including a grandmother called Sharina, who is even stronger than Nynaeve. Like, some old lady, random in the fields. Major chatteler. We also hear Chessa. She's following behind and muttering about Mary and Salami having run off and giving her the work of 3 people. It's like, ooh. So both confirm right there. Mary and Salami are taking dirt naps under the snow.
Yep.
They ain't coming back. All these new recruits are causing some unrest, though. Their mothers are fighting with daughters because the daughter is stronger, and they know that once they become Aes Sedai, then the mother's going to have to defer to the daughter. So, like, family dynamics are changing. All these women everywhere that can channel. Sharina, for example, she spent decades as like the matriarch of her large family. She's like running it with an iron fist, and now she has to be a subservient novice in white.
Yeah.
She follows every order, though. Never complains, but she has very direct looks. She'll make a great Aes Sedai, I think. She's already got that down. So there are also 2 Eamon fielders. We don't find out who they are amongst these. They joined the novices. They were brought in by two other sisters. They were also surprised. I don't know where they were so they might have been gone away while Elayne was raised. Because when they come back, the sisters are surprised to see Egwene as the Amyrlin, and so are the 2 girls from Eamon's Field, who we don't know who they are, but they got cocky because they thought they knew the Amyrlin and had to be punished. Some spanking was done, I imagine. They stuck their tongue out at her. So, yeah, that will not do.
Nope.
Anyway, Gareth Bryan has the whole army gathered and lined up. In fact, everyone is lined up. Not just this line of initiates. Romanda and Elayne have the sitters. Everyone's ready to go. Go where, you say? Has it been a month already? It has been a month. Everyone is ready to go. So, with Elayne and Romanda walking up there, they're opening their mouths before they can start their shit. Egwene announces, it is time. And 13 sisters link and open a gateway 10 paces tall and 100 paces wide onto the plain between Dragamount and Tar Valon. And they start marching through, and it has begun. Dun, dun, dun. And then we leave that chapter.
100 paces wide. That's 200 meters.
You're marching an army through.
It's a huge.
I can't wait to
gateway.
read Elida's point of view from watching this gateway open.
So good. So good. All right, Vil, what have you got? Do you want to go back and talk about Faile's capture?
It's not like a analyzing.
No, it's not.
It's like, okay, cool. Just it's events.
It's set up.
Set up, yeah. So it's set up for the dread of marching through the snow that we'll be facing in the coming days.
Fingers crossed it's not so much dread. It's not going to be so bad this time, guys.
I don't think so.
Look at book 8.
I think we're gonna have this discussion.
I'm looking forward to book 9.
That's why I say we're going to have this discussion, and we're going to go through all of this with a fresh set of lenses
and a fine-tooth comb.
Many views episodes it's going to take us to get to the end of the next book. Winter's Heart now next, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we'll rehash this, but right now I'm cold. We're starting
like
Winter's
cold
Heart
as Winter's Heart
sets in the southern hemisphere. I don't know if it's the appropriate reading for me during the mid of winter, but
immersion therapy. Yeah, look, I mean, yes, the chapter is called Beginnings. It's right at the end of it is straight up setting up the storylines for the next book, right? I mean, the obvious one, and this is maybe a little bit of the cover influencing my memory of the book. It's Perrin in the snow looking for Faile, spends the whole book doing it. It's the beginning of the major plot arc for book 9 is this inciting event. It is Faile getting kidnapped by Roland, who is the same Aiel that tries to court her and gets his head crushed by Perrin's hammer for his efforts. Shame, he actually goes
making moves on his wife.
He doesn't know that she's married or anything, and he's actually going to help Faile when like all the chaos of that rescue is happening. He wants to go help her, and when Perrin and Roland are running at each other, or like they're approaching each other to fight, Roland's an Aiel. Perrin, okay, he's Taverin. He's got a hammer. He's our beefy boy. We want him to win. But Roland, in a one-on-one fight, who seems as big, if not bigger than Perrin physically. He's a huge dude. Probably would have had Perrin, but Faile shouts at Perrin, and that makes Roland pause. And that's when Perrin crushes his head, like I feel there's a part of me that feels sorry for Roland. Because he's Meridine as well.
Sympathetic.
He's not Shaido. He's brotherless.
Yeah. Still ran away for your clan.
You did. Well, couldn't believe that this wetlander was the Shaido. He who comes with the dawn.
He joined the Shaido. He kidnapped Faile. He got beat with a hammer. I mean,
he should have.
But yeah,
yes,
he's not an evil guy. He's not a dark friend or anything. Guy, no. Yeah,
all great.
He
saw a pretty girl with a hawk nose, and he wanted some of that.
All right, before I pull us forward into the climax of book 9, let's talk about the climax of book 8. Was there anything you wanted to add about this chapter, Vil? Just set up.
It's literally all set up. The madness. I mean, for me, really, the telling thing is, or the notable things, not telling things in this chapter is Perrin's the reminder of his ability to smell people's emotions again, and that Masema is a nutbag. Like the idea of him just ending Masema right there would have been great, but now he's got to accommodate this thought of tracking him back to Rand.
Remember that thought, because you're going to feel this way probably 10 times in the next book. Like, just kill him. Just fucking get rid of this idiot.
Just get it done with. Just end him now. It's kind of that moment where Paden Fane should have been ended in the eye of the world. Like, just do it now. Just get it done.
When they had him in Faldara, they had him in a cell, locked up.
Yep. Just set it on fire with him inside. I'd be all for that bonfire. I'd bring some wood.
Okay, well, in that case, let me quickly rattle off my little inane observations, and then we can do the last quote-unquote chapter, which is a page and a half, and then talk about the book as a whole and set ourselves up for Winter's Heart. Aram still doesn't like Elias. Why is that?
Elias doesn't like Aram.
Aram and Elias had a tricky relationship when we met them both.
Yeah. Well, Aram is a lusty, murdery person.
Well, because Aram was a tinker, and Elias had a history of violence. And that's why Elias had an uneasy relationship with all those tinkers that they meet, with Perrin and Egwene in Eye of the World. But now Aram is also a killer. Aram also has a sword, also hates the way of the leaf. Now, why does he still hate Elias? If anything, I would expect him to go, I get it now. I'm also a murderous bastard now.
I think he's just jealous. He's jealous of Elias and Perrin's relationship. They have a special connection with the Wolf Brother thing, maybe. And Aram feels like, hey, Perrin's mine. And he is a bit of a crazy person.
That could be that out of the perspective of Aram, but for me, out of the perspective of Elias, is he sees someone that has gone against their thing.
Broken his own vows, almost.
He broken his own vows. It's a bit of it, like you. It's hard to trust somebody that can flip a 180.
Absolutely. I also thought that maybe Aram doesn't like Elias because Elias is a reminder of who Aram used to be. Like whenever Elias is looking at Aram, Aram knows that Elias knew him as a tinker. Perrin met him once, but Elias had a relationship with his whole family, right? Like with the leaders of that tinker group.
Yeah, absolutely. Or maybe they had long fireside discussions, debates of the way of the leaf
history,
versus
but
the way of the wolf. And
maybe violence aside, maybe they just don't get along for other reasons. They don't like the same music.
Yeah.
The dragon sworn all look totally disheveled and crazed, and like we've always expected them to look, but their weapons, Perrin notices, are well kept and maintained. And I wonder if that is because Masema was also a soldier, and he would be, espousing this idea of like, take care of your weapons, we're going to be fighting, oil your swords, clean your weapons, all that sort of stuff. And I think it's also to remind us that the Dragonsworn are, yes, a fervent group of religious fanatics, but are also actually a real threat in terms of fighting and stuff, right? Like they do pose a real threat. You can't just ignore them.
I think there's a third thing to that as well, is just to remind us that Perrin is a blacksmith, and he looks at those type of things.
It's
like
true.
He looks at weapons, the state that they are kept in.
He'll notice that. Another one of our main characters might not, but yes, that's where Perrin's eye goes. Yeah, that's true.
It's true.
Perrin thinks that Baller seems to know what he's about. Yes, he does. Baller is also the one that gives Perrin the guidance. He's like, don't call him Masema, call him the Prophet, and don't call Rand, call him the Lord Dragon or the Dragon Reborn. Just fucking love Baller.
Madman.
Perrin, keep him close and listen to every fucking thing he says. I've read since when talking. Okay, sorry, switching now over to the Aes Sedai. That maybe the body that Halima was hiding in the snow in chapter 16 was the body of Mary, not Selami. It's hardly relevant because they both met the same fate, and Halima is killing her way through Egwene's maids to get closer and closer.
Chessa's next.
I worry for Chessa because I like her now, as weird as her little prattling way is.
Yeah.
Sheriam apparently is really throwing herself into her duties. My guess is likely to gain Egwene's favor so that Egwene would share more information with her, because remember, Sheriam took a beating from Halima.
Yeah.
Because she couldn't tell Halima what Egwene's plans were, because Egwene's planning with Swan, not with Sheriam.
Yeah.
But Halima is expecting, or Arangar is expecting Sheriam to come up with the informational goods, and she just isn't.
Yeah, I think Halima lit a fire under her ass. Probably literally as well, in one of her torture tents.
The Two Rivers girls, so they are still in Mirundi, right? They've not crossed the border into Andor because they are not going to pass through Andor. They're going to create their gateway. The deal they made with the nobles is that they'll travel directly from Mirundi. After a month of resting the soldiers, they will travel to the tower to lay siege to it, which means the Aes Sedai with the Two Rivers girls would have been traveling south. Maybe they were coming south from Caemlyn to find Saladar to bring the girls there, and that's why they crossed paths.
Because there was a bunch of the girls in Caemlyn, right? That's when Rand freaked them out and made them cry.
Exactly.
In Caemlyn,
it's
right?
the same group.
Oh, okay. But there were many girls there, not just 2. What happened to the rest?
Were there just 2 girls here?
Yeah.
You just mean no, the whole group's there. The whole lot of them, including Matt's sister.
No, I read that wrong. It was 2 sisters.
Yes.
That were bringing the group.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So those 2 sisters are from Caemlyn. Who were they?
Can't remember.
I'd have to go back.
I'll look it up. But it was. I should be able to find the chapter name. I think there was Kulane's Hound was the name of the inn they were staying in.
Jesus, Moritz. Sure.
Fucking hell. If I get that right, I mean, the wine is really talking now, that's why I'm swearing so much. But if I get that one right, I'm going to pour another glass of wine. And then I also just, my last note is I just had a real chuckle at like when Egwene has got everyone arrayed in their rows, ready to like do the... Ramanda and Elayne come forward and they're about to say something, and Egwene is basically, shut up, no time for chit chat, it's time to go. Like, she's not listening to them, and she doesn't have to listen to all their bloody babbling on about nothing ever again.
But Remain still tries to one up Elayne, like, hey, but the Amberlin has commanded us to go, everyone. Just got to get in there.
Just got to. But Egwene just shuts it up. No time for chit chat. Let's go. Okay, let's take care of the final bit of housekeeping for the Path of Daggers, which is, quote-unquote, Chapter 31, called After. Was this chapter an afterthought? Let's see. Me?
Well done, Moritz.
Dripping with sarcasm. Your face seemed genuinely pained. I'm not even going to recap this chapter. It is basically just a long list of rumors. So it's basically doing the Robert Jordan thing, like taking the actual events of the book, spinning them wildly out of control. But there is one interesting line at the end, which doesn't shed an awful lot of light on anything, but I thought was a cool little touch, which is, after all these rumors are listed out, it says, the final paragraph of the book. Across the nations, the story spread like spiderwebs laid upon spiderwebs, and men and women planned the future, believing they know the truth. They planned, and the pattern absorbed their plans, weaving toward the future foretold. Driving home the point that there's a prophecy, it's all been foretold, stuff is going to happen in a certain way. People are making plans, and they're getting all clever about what it is they're going to do, and the pattern just absorbs all of those and continues weaving towards the future foretold. So that marks the conclusion of The Path of Daggers, Book 8, in the bank. Well done to us.
We are the best.
Shall we give ourselves a little clap?
Let's.
I really did.
Do the poetry corner thing. Just
flick our fingers. Clip, 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 clip.
Before we launch into everything about the book and our comments about the book as a whole, favorite moment from these chapters?
I just forgot. I did have one. Billy, go. I'll think.
Okay, Billy. Favorite moment.
There isn't favorite moments. It's 3 major chapters that set up with dreadful things that happen. There's no one-upping the bad guy. I suppose the most favorite moment out of, but it sounds well, but it would fit into my character as someone that's from the dark affiliation. That old Jaichim gets drowned in brandy, and he gets his comeuppance finally.
Oh yes.
But yeah, it's. I would say that out of everything for me, the best thing was the quality of the emotional writing in 2 very heavy scenes.
Yeah.
The death of Elayne and with Van Dien there, and Rand putting Fedwin Morr to sleep.
Yeah.
I don't want to say putting him down because he's not a dog.
Yeah.
But Mercy killing him. What is the word I'm looking for? Euthanasia.
Like, yeah.
It's that is the best part of it. Like writing that can move you to tears.
Yeah.
In insignificant. I use the word insignificant lightly because they aren't the most significant characters in the book.
No.
We don't have an 8-book history of them being there.
No.
But both instances gets you welling up with tears.
Yeah.
So for me, that is my favorite thing about the stretch, not in what happens to them, because that is just, it's sad.
Yeah.
Where the total polar opposite is Jaichim drowning in brandy, kind of made me like, that's cruel irony.
Suck it, Jaichim.
Yeah, it's not a favorite moment. It's hard to choose a favorite moment, but like for this stretch of chapters, we'll call it, what was your most impactful moment on you, perhaps? And that, I agree, Veli, was hardcore.
I mean, it's the theme of these last couple chapters. This section that we just covered, the two emotional blows, the sort of, I don't even want to call it catharsis because it's not like we got a satisfactory resolution or anything, but the sort of the emotional...
No, there's none of that. There's
bookend that it puts at the end of this book, like, just brings you right down and gets you, at the risk of sounding like a millennial, gets you right in the feels, right? Like it just...
Yeah.
it really turned on the waterworks, I think, for all of us. I remembered this section from the first time I read it, the second time, and now, like, it's something that's always stuck with me, especially Morr. I mean, Adelaide, I always knew. I didn't find her section as affecting, probably because none of the main characters that we've been following have been so directly involved with it. It happened off page, and you sort of you see the after effects of it. I mean, I'm not saying that I was unmoved by it, but the Fedwin Morr one is just like, and especially I think, since becoming a parent, and then the death of this person in like a childlike state. He is effectively a child in that moment, and like how Rand takes him, like Rand is the one that holds him. It's not like he dies on Min's shoulders or anything. Like Rand is the one that takes the responsibility. And I didn't even pick up on this, Joe, but when you said like Rand is like looking at Taim like while he's doing it. Oh man, yeah, I've got goosebumps talking about it. Very affecting.
The Adelaide scene was hard for me. I think I took that the hardest. Well, I had the most emotional response to that.
Interesting.
Because of Van Dien.
Ah, yes.
Because of it was from Van Dien's perspective.
Her sitting there with that emotion, very much alive.
That wail at the end, and her warder taking, her guarding stance in her mourning, and
it's not the death of Adelaide. It is the stoic way in which she deals with it, but also that wail at the end, the pain that is the pain that you can feel in the pages without so much words being put into it. But I think this is, and correct me if I'm wrong, the first book that leaves us like on a non-resolutionary sort of cliffhanger.
Empire Strikes Back.
There's just there's just more
Infinity
open.
War.
We know there's another bad guy. There's no bad guys killed except for Jaichim.
Not by Rand.
Giggle.
It's there's no like heroic triumph.
No
part. Like
no.
Rand isn't saved out of a box.
Even the triumph against the Seanchan comes at like a terrible cost to his own people and his own sanity, and like the realization he can't use Calandor for things. Him almost killing Narishma and Flynn, like in the chaos after the attack on him. Like, things are not. There's no like nice, neat full stop at the end of this book. It's very much an ellipse, right? Like it's an open-ended. Like, oh fuck, okay, now what? Yeah. How about you, Joe?
I did actually have a favorite moment, which made me laugh out loud amongst all this horror, death, sorrow, is Narishma and Flynn. when they're hiding, when he tells them to come out. I read it as in like I don't think we're gonna come out. Like, maybe you should calm down first. I think everyone's just a little freaked out. Like, let's hang on. And he's like, yeah, that's a good idea, guys.
It
like,
reads almost like a Monty Python sketch.
Yeah,
I'll ask him, but I don't think he'll be very keen.
This reminded me of the Three Amigos. Have you seen that film?
We've discussed it on this podcast more than I think the actual runtime of the movie.
My life, a lot of my life is linked to that film. And this scene was like when when El Guapo is questioning Jefe about, does he know what a plethora is? Because he says, I have a plethora of gifts. He's like, yes, you do, El Guapo. And he's telling him, like, do you even know what a plethora means? And Jefe's like, could it be that once again you are angry at something else and are trying to take it out on me? This exact scene.
100%. Yeah. I mean, your moments, especially Villiers, is going to make mine look pretty puerile, but like my favorite moment was 13 linked sisters making a gateway 10 paces tall and 100 paces wide. It conjures for me the image of, and this is giving away my IT nerd status once again, like a super ultra widescreen monitor that's like curved around you, like it is so big it has to curve so that you don't lose sight of it. I just have this image of that massive army. 200 meters is a huge gateway. I mean, 13 sisters linked together making one gateway is pretty special. I thought that was a really, really cool visual.
It's a very good one, Moritz.
Yeah.
Don't feel ashamed about your choice. It's awesome.
Don't choice shame. Okay. Let's have a bit of a chat about the book as a whole. Now, I have made my feelings about the book known throughout the reading of it. From the beginning, I've resisted reading it. I've for a long time held the opinion that it is the beginning of the slog. I've now quite vocally and repeatedly rescinded that opinion. I've done a complete 180. I've also listed numerous times why I've thought that this book in the past have thought that this book was a downer or like not good. There's no Matt. Rand is taking a turn and harming those around him. The maidens are furious with him. The tower is a shambles. The kin are annoying and the sea folk are straight up unlikable. There's a bunch of noble names to keep track of, from Tyr, Cairhien, Elayne, and Andor. And even Faile's kidnapping right at the end casts a negative light on the whole book. Right? So I've always thought that this is the beginning of the slog. And I think for all those reasons, that's why I'd always thought that. But now I really like it. I wouldn't put it up there with the best books, but I certainly don't look down on it in the way I do. And that for me is really great. Like, it feels like reclaiming something that I had lost. You know, it was always in my own mind. I mean, it was always there in exactly the same format. But I am really, really appreciative of the fact that I've had this chance to read the book again. And I mean, discussing it with you guys in depth and in detail is a big part of how I came around to changing my opinion about the book.
I also like this book far more than I thought I was going to like. Sorry, Veli. As soon as you lose.
Jump in, by all means.
Yeah, and I think as well, like, the slog idea comes from it because the weather changed. I think not just the writing style, but
big part of it.
To now, the weather changes, the snow comes, everything slows down. Everything comes to a halt. Egwene's army stops for a month. Nobody can move fast anymore. So, like, not just the story and the style of writing.
Storms, right? Like the Ceramos or whatever they're called.
Everything.
Like, it's cold and dreary and wet and it's snowing outside.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's like the brakes are slammed on in the story and in the writing style. And I can see why people get bummed because it is dark and, like you said, like, bad shit happens. And this book ends on a big downer with people, dying and horrible things happening. And open-endedness, not like a big final battle with a bad guy or a Forsaken dies and, something like that. So I can see why people thought this, but I enjoyed this book far. Like, I didn't remember anything. I remembered Calandor going crazy because it's the cover, Like, I remembered that must be this book. I know I don't remember a lot of the books, but I really did not remember this book.
I think that's only going to get
I thoroughly enjoyed it.
more and more the case, right? Like my memory of the last books, like the Sanderson books, I've only read once each. So I'm going to be like constantly surprised there. But I think I even skipped book 10 on my most recent reread before the newer books came out. And I also don't remember much from... I mean, I remember the events. I remember Egwene taking over. I remember...
but I didn't remember it was this
me
book.
Neither.
You know,
me
like
neither. Not at all.
Thinking back, like... Yeah. But yeah, enjoyed it. Villy?
Think that we try and analyze a book from front cover to back cover. Mm-hmm. And it started in the previous book, where the wrapping up of a very intricate, woven set of storylines is more complex than the story itself. Mm-hmm. And where do you put the front cover and the back cover within those storylines? So we're finding ourselves in the territory now where you have to put an end to it somewhere. And it's not falling on a climax that you enjoy, because I picked up on the spillover of Dumai Wells in the beginning chapters of this book. Like, it's for me in that open start end structure, I would have said that should have been in the previous book.
Dumai Wells was 2 books ago, by the way.
Sorry, it started then already.
But so it illustrates your point.
Yes,
you know, like, it is blurring the lines between the books, because the stories are over, the timelines are reaching between them.
All over the shop. Yeah. And that's why we always say The Eye of the World, The Great Hunt, The Dragon Reborn. Those are the 3 books that are separate volumes. Mm-hmm. That is, you can say, cool, book 1, 2, and 3, and then you go into the greatest story with a cover in between, and a cover in between. So I didn't feel sluggy at all. No. We refer to it as the slug. I feel like I've got a greater understanding, and we have got the privilege of going from the last word straight to the first word without years in between. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you're going from, I need resolution. I've waited. I've been standing in queue. I've been whatever you had to do to get your hands on this book at that time. Mm-hmm. And then I got handed this that ends in dread, misfortune, death, no hero. So you go, this was a fucking slog to work through this, remember nobles' names, and no climax.
Yeah.
So that for me is where it's nothing to do with the content. I think it's about the structuring and how we as human beings want resolution.
Totally.
We want depth. We want a feel-good moment. We want to go like, this was worth it. To spend however many hours you spend kicking back reading this book, or however frustrated you got because who the fuck is this noble person? And I mean, when these books came out, internet was a sparse thing, especially in Africa. So you couldn't just hop onto your phone and go like, cool, Tavalon Library, who the fuck is this person?
Yeah. Who's Aaron Miller
I've got
again?
this now.
Yeah.
Who's this? Who's Mirror with too many eyes and too many owls? Like, we didn't have that. So you had to go, okay, previous volumes, back glossary. Oh, shit, I couldn't find anything. And eventually you just like, look, I'm not even going to remember all of this.
I think you're right. Like, Dumai's Wells and like the after effects of it mark the beginning of that like solid blurring. Like, the story's just gotten so big that you can't cover everyone. Like, you can't follow the timeline and put like you said, this beginning cover and the end cover on a timeline, and now it contains everything that happens in between. There's a scene in Winter's Heart's prologue that is a direct continuation of Cheyenne and Pavara and the other Aes Sedai in that room. They're still in that room. You know, like, it goes straight into it. Some of the other stuff is like on other points in the timeline. that timeline website that I was talking about lists like the chapters in which these events happen, and they start to blur together. Like you're reading events from book 8, but then it's like, oh no, from Crown of Swords or from book 9, Winter's Heart, this chapter, this is actually happening at this point. You know, like they all start blurring the lines and crossing over into each other because it's just so big.
Well, yeah, that, and again, we've established that through analyzing the content. For me, like we have not sat here and said, "Wow, this was a heap of shit." Like, thanks for wasting my Sunday evening for trying to analyze this crap. We've enjoyed the content of the story every single moment, and we have the great gift of in 2 weeks' time sitting here again and continuing with the story. So it puts a whole different perspective on it. And I think, it's a disservice to Robert Jordan and specifically Robert Jordan to go out and just jump on this bandwagon or this apple cart and like slogging and saying, "Oh yeah, skip all of these, go to that book." Like, dive into it, and if anything, hit book 7, 8, 9, and 10 as fast as you can.
Yeah.
And let it all flow and say you're doing the mega volume now of this politics and struggles of storylines branching out where they will eventually come all back together like a river and become the final battle. That's a lot of territory.
The structure of the whole narrative follows what we are observing in the books as well. Like we get towards like the end of the book or something, we go, "Oh, this is all set up now, we're just moving some pieces into the place." That goes for the entire series as well, right? Like there's a lot of like politicking and putting pieces in place now in books 9 and 10 and 11 that make 12 and 13 and 14 actually make sense, right? Like there's stuff that has to happen that we have to be told about to make the impact of the final 3-book finale like really, really hit home. You talk about some people like talking about skipping book 8 and 9 and 10 or some of them. I'm going to quickly, this might take a minute or two, rattle off exactly what actually transpires in this book. So like previously on Blood and Ashes, I'm going to quickly sum up. This is what you're going to miss if you don't read book 8. Okay. Nynaeve, Elayne, and Avienda and co. And the Windfinders and the Aes Sedai travel to the farm. Avienda unweaves a gateway. They use the Bowl of the Winds. They cause the weirdness in the One Power. They get attacked by the Seanchan, flee to Andor via gateway, and Elayne causes the unpicked weave to explode. Perrin scoops up Morgase, Linny, Basil Gil, Lamgwin, and his girlfriend, Talanvor Bulwer, who immediately add value, specifically Bulwer. Elias rejoins him. Oh, and the Queen of Gildan, Alejandre, swears fealty to Perrin and is also swept up with him in his ragtag army looking for Masema. The Shaido are regrouping, and Galena is snared even tighter after Tharava basically takes control of her via the Oath Rod. Mogedion and Sindane are Moradin's puppets and set the stage for Shaido Haran to introduce himself to Grandal, who now also has to learn who is calling the shots. Cadswain and Sorelea swear a water oath to make Rand learn how to laugh and cry again. Rand is mopping up the remnants of Samael's armed forces and gets feedback on the size of the Black Tower. Things are progressing quickly at the Black Tower, right? Like something we haven't even talked about, but like the Black Tower is going bonkers. He plans on attacking the Seanchan and tells some of the Ashaman absentmindedly that he's going to cleanse Saidin. Egwene is barely hanging on to control as she has to withstand all of Ramonda and Elayne's onslaughts on her authority while Halima is killing people and beating up Sheriam. She works in the background with Gareth Bryan, who has also been talking with Talmanes and the Band of the Red Hand. Egwene and Gareth set up the meeting with Andoran Mirandian nobles near the border of Mirandi and Andor. She uses this to set up her final play with the Hall and tricks them into declaring war on Elida, giving her power over the Hall in all matters relating to the war. She opens the novice book to women of all ages. She sets Gareth the task of regrouping for a month and then travels to Tarvalon to lay siege to the White Tower. Rand builds a force of soldiers from his least trusted nobles, Bashir, and 1,000 men from the Legion of the Dragon, and sends for 50 Ashaman from the Black Tower, which he uses to drive the from the mountains of Altara, the Seanchan from the mountains of Altara, through which they were advancing on Ilion. He's almost killed twice. He pushes the invaders all the way back to Ibu Dar, where he eventually wields Calandor, handing the Seanchan a massive defeat, but sustaining significant collateral damage. Alviarin is running the tower via her puppet Elayne, who seems thoroughly broken, but still works on Alviarin's demise through Elayne, who recruits Pivara to seek out the Black Arja. Elayne and Pivara find both the rebel ferrets and their first Black Arja sister. Elayne's force of 50 sisters and 200 soldiers reach the Black Tower and are overcome and bonded instead. And after the battles with the Seanchan, Rand returns to Cairhien, where the maidens kick the shit out of him for leaving them behind. He makes Catswain his advisor. Soralia brings the Aes Sedai kidnappers they captured at Dumai's Wells to swear fealty to him, and some of the Ashaman sent by Tahim, along with Agenor, Osangar, and Dashiva, try to kill Rand. They fail and run away. Fedwin Morr finally goes insane and reverts to a childlike state, and Rand kills him with poison. With Elayne and Nynaeve and Avienda on the way to Caemlyn, Adelaus and Ispen are killed. When they get to Caemlyn, the dance for the thrones begins in earnest. Millie receives Daved Hanlon, who just left Torum Righton's employ at the end of Book 7, and kills Jaichim Carridin and threatens Faile into obedience. And right at the end, Faile gets kidnapped by the Shaido. That is
nothing much.
That is a shit ton of stuff. To advise anyone to skip this book is nutso. I want to read it again.
If only there weren't so many more things to do. But I'm looking forward to book 9.
Yes.
And I'm very keen on book 10 as well. Not because I know what's going to come, but because I want to see if I'm going to still have the same opinion of it. Because my opinion of book 8 has already changed so much.
Totally.
So I don't think it's as bad as I remember it. This podcast, of course, like you said, is going to help us enjoy it more.
Yes,
because we'll understand it better, I imagine. Okay,
the lenses that we've had to put in the glasses that we read the book this time through. We would do 4 or 3 chapters at a section, and yes, there were chapters that we had to deal with characters that we don't associate with, that we don't like, but because of the choice of our glasses, we have to use it and understand it. And I think that's just gained us a big understanding into the depth of it all. And it was fantastic. Just so much setting up. Just this is like these steps in this pyramid that's now just being built up and built up and built up. We're getting there. This is it's exciting stuff. We're climbing the steps now.
We are. Now, in your Pyramidville, pick a block that was your favorite block of the whole pyramid. Favorite moment of the book.
It's 2 things, but the same sort of wins, I want to say, for me, that stood out the most in this book, and that is of Egwene and Elayne. Them both being in separate areas, on separate storylines, but Egwene, through the help of Swan and some very, very clever thinking, gaining that power and ousting Ramonda and Elayne, and now we end the book with her storyline with a 200-meter wide gateway, and the siege has begun. And that's some of my biggest memory is in what is coming next out of her. There's awesome shit coming now with Egwene and the tower. And then finally having the princess become a queen and saying, I'm doing this on my own. And the beauty of it is her walking into the palace, not with a throne of people backing her or anything else, but on her own 2 feet, walking in and standing in front, I'm here to lay claim to what is rightfully mine. It's sort of those 2 power moves by both of them. Is
all you have to do is wait 2 books for Elayne to actually get there.
But I know it's the setting up, like that.
No, for sure. No, it is, and it's like you said. Elayne is now she's not playing around anymore. She's made her intentions clear. Egwene also was sort of playing in the shadows for a while, and then made her intentions clear. And I'll jump ahead of Jodie and just say my favorite moment of the book, which would surprise no one, is Egwene taking charge of the hall. That elaborate plan that she came up with. The knife's edge on which that plan balanced, with, forget the name of the Aes Sedai, with a photographic memory that sort of quotes the law in that sitting of the hall. That fell in her favor because of what she had asked her loyal Sumiko?
I was thinking Takima.
Takima, no, it's Takima.
Takima.
Tamika, something like it, yeah.
It was Egwene's request from her loyal Aes Sedai to go and speak to sitters from the Argers that actually got that over the line as well. So that was my favorite moment. How about you, Joe?
Of course it was the same favorite moment.
No, of course it was.
The more I think it's the only moment you can choose because there are no other great moments. I mean, Vili, you threw Elayne a bone, really. The entire book, she's not doing much, traveling with everyone. So if you look at like the main characters, Rand is going mad.
Rand
is having a story.
Listen.
Lest we forget a pleasant ride.
Listen, Rand. Look at our main characters. Rand is going down a dark and horrible path. It's not like, his journey is so much fun.
No.
Perrin, not in the book. Mat, not in the book.
At all.
Egwene, dominating like a
motherfucker.
Boss. Yes,
I'll bleep myself out.
Nynaeve. What's Nynaeve doing? Nynaeve and Elayne are like traveling, and Elaine's having her own little mission.
Did Nynaeve get married, or was that the previous book?
She didn't become queen. She just got to Caemlyn to say, okay, I want to become queen. So look, she achieved something, but nothing great. So out of those 5 characters that we, like our main 5-6 characters that we're following, it's really only Egwene that accomplishes anything in this book.
Yeah.
In like it makes us feel good. So we're all going to choose Egwene because there's not really any other choice.
Rand does take an army of 6,000 people and smashes a warmongering, polished military of how many 50,000 troops or something, and he fucks them up badly. Like that's pretty good, but the whole time
at a high cost.
Some of Idle and Ionella's men, a couple of dedicated, a couple of soldiers. I mean, they were always going to die, but you're right though. I mean, it is under a cloud, right? Like Rand has a massive military victory, but it's under a cloud of despair since he killed his own people, and he also shows like his own madness and his own blind spots, right? Like doesn't want to listen about the weirdness of the power, uses Kalandor, kills his own people, blah blah blah. So yeah, it's not quite the like you can't go and pat him on the back and go, well done, Rand. So yeah, you're really left with
Egwene's got like a complete story arc in this book.
Yes,
I mean,
and with a
needs
massive
to get control of the tower, manipulates them all, gets control, is the Amyrlin with control, and opens a gateway, ends the book on Tarvalon's front door, on the doorstep. So like, yeah, all right, now we can start the next book with the siege.
Can't wait.
We gotta throw a bone to the dark there. There was a few achievements there.
Of course we do.
Shadar Haran has reigned terror effectively non-stop. Moradin is in control of both Moghedien and Sindain ex Lanfear. 2 very, very big things
and our
with marbles and mind traps and Saw in his eyes.
Yeah,
like
Moradin's having a good run of things as well.
Moradin's having a
Egwene.
great run. So just to remind us that there are these really antagonists in the book that are still there with great storylines themselves that is still going to play a massive part. So
thanks Vol for always repping the Shaido.
Gotta do it. There's 2 sides to every story.
There is. Okay, big exhale. That was a book. To our listeners. Jay, surprised at that one? It was a book. Just looked like a Kindle.
Indeed. Yeah.
To our listeners, send us your favorite moments, your thoughts on the path of Daggers Hell, your thoughts on anything, or just say hi. You can do so using the social media links in the episode description, which includes my email address and our X handle at BloodandAshPod. On our website, bloodandashespodcast.com, you can even leave us a voice note like Scott did at the start of this episode. You too can be famous, just like Scott. Once you've done all of that, you can prepare for next time on Blood and Ashes, when we start Book 9, Winter's Heart. And we will cover, drum roll, the prologue.
I expected as much.
It is called Snow, just to set the scene, just to cool you off. It's 77 pages long. 4 points of view.
I'm well into it.
4 points of view, and
so
mostly
far
picking
away
up.
from the end. Like the end is not in sight.
Oh no! But there is a section there, Joe. Like I said, of Rand, sort of recapping like what he's going to do in this book, and it sets up what if I had to erase my memory or my preconceived ideas of Book 9. Seems like an amazing book. So let's see just how amazing it is. But yes, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. It sets up a great book. I'm amped for Winter's Heart. I can tell how excited you are. And until we dive into it next time, I'll say to you both, sleep well and wake.
May you all find shade and water.
Cold beer.
Yes. Indeed.